me do this. Let's make sure that works. Okay, so this will be something that we post as minutes too. So just know that the meeting's being recorded and we can post that as a record of our conversation. And otherwise, I'm about to turn it over here and let us start rolling through the agenda. But a couple highlights, I guess, that we've got in front of us tonight is a nice chance to kind of catch up on where we're at in the legislative session. So we'll start with having our FWP piece, but then we're going to open it up because we all have different involvements or things we're tracking. So anybody who wants to weigh in and be part of that update, there'll be a good chance for that. We've got some guests in the room that I'm going to let Randy introduce here in a minute and then introduce themselves. So some new faces. So thanks for being here. And that's a great chance to meet our new director, commissioner, Parks Board member. And then we'll also have a chance to talk about some subcommittee work, some stuff we've mentioned before, but actually kind of figure out a game plan for what's next. So that's the bulk of the evening. And again, welcome. Thanks for being here. And Randy.
Great. Thanks, Vivica. So the last time we met, if I have my memory correct, we had a lot of conversations around the changes yet to come. At the time, we didn't know who our director was going to be and didn't know who our commissioners and Parks Board representatives would be. We gave a legislative update and had Ron Gendro and I think at the time our acting director, Dustin Temple, talk about some of our legislative and upcoming stuff. So really excited tonight to be able to introduce a lot of those folks that we didn't have figured out then. So that's a big part of tonight for me anyway, is make sure you guys are connected to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks leadership, as well as some of our trustee decision makers that have been identified by our governor. So I think what we'll do is give an opportunity maybe if they'd like to say a few words, but I'll introduce each of them in order here and then have a chance maybe then to turn it back to hear from the CAC members and maybe do an introduction there as well. So first, Hank, if you want to go first, Hank Warsek, our new director.
Thank you, Randy. Hey, first of all, I really appreciate the opportunity to be at the CAC meetings. I worked, those that don't know me, I worked for the department for 17 years as a licensed bureau chief and then a legislative liaison. So I had an opportunity to come out of retirement and come back and work for the state, something I truly love working with this department. We've got great people. It's almost like coming home to me to come back and work with everybody. So I'm pretty excited about it. And I've got some new ideas for CACs, and the regional supervisors are working on some stuff. We're going to make it consistent for our charters. We're going to use more of the CACs, more of a sounding board, and get them more active with in our decision making, as provide some really solid input for us. And we look forward to kind of expanding the CACs and using them a lot more often. So it's once again an honor and a great opportunity to be back here with you guys. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Hank. I do want to admit I was talking to somebody a couple nights ago. Actually, I was down at Ravalli County Fish and Wildlife and talking a little bit about Hank as our new director. And I laughed because prior to getting our new director, we were wondering who we might get. And there were a lot of names out there. And one of my bigger concerns was just the huge learning curve of trying to get a new director up to speed on the agency and the kind of things we do and those things. And I laughed with Hank. I was thinking, man, imagine somebody trying to explain bonus points or squaring bonus points or quadrupling bonus points or whatever else. And I thought, man, there's no one, if Pat can, or if we can get Hank to explain that, then that'll be great. And so it's nice to have somebody on board that we don't have to explain those things to, because I sure can't figure it out.
I appreciate that, Randy. Thank you.
We expect a lot bigger things from you than bonus point questions, though, Hank.
Well, I hope so.
Okay. All right, let's turn to our Fish and Wildlife Commissioner, Pat Tabor.
Thanks, Randy. So Pat Tabor, I'm honored to be selected by Greg Gianforti to take over Tim Aldrich's role for District 1, big shoes to fill. I've known Tim for lots of years. Tim and I served together on the board of outfitters. I was on that board for 5 years. I was an outfitter for 17 years, turned over the business to my adult children about 2 years ago and retired. Prior to that, I worked for a national CPA firm. No, it was not H&R Block. That was covered in some recent press. That was a little inaccurate, but nonetheless, I come to the role with a very open mind and a very strong willingness, and I think a track record. I was appointed by a Democratic governor to be on the board of outfitters. So I have a history actually of collaborating with both sides. And that's what I intend to do on the Fish and Game Commission. I don't come in with any preconceived notions or anything else. I want to do right by the wildlife and do right by the resources. And I also want to get parties to sit down and talk and understand each other's positions. So as I was warned many, many times, it's a lot to learn. I have been drinking from a fire hose now for the last 3 weeks. And I'd be kidding if I was telling you that I got it all figured out at this stage, but we learn as we go. My contact details are on the website. Feel free at any time to reach out.
We might have lost Pat there. We'll see if he kicks back in here in just a sec. And let's move to Jody, our Parks and Recreation Board appointee, and when if Pat comes back online, we can give him a chance to finish up. Jody?
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, I've been in Helena for about 27 years. I enjoy the outdoors, all the hunting and fishing and recreational opportunities that we have here in Montana. I'm a small business owner, and I've served on the state off-highway vehicle Citizens Advisory Committee. I've been there for 7 years, and I'm still on that. So I've worked with some folks on the other side in FWP for a while, and I've enjoyed the relationships I've built there. And I look forward to working with you folks and hearing some of the issues and concerns that you have. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you bet, Jody. And this will be the first of many, I hope. And I certainly will have had the same conversation with Pat Tabor, but it's really, really great when we have the commissioners and board members joining us both with the CAC and then also with our processes and meetings in the field and the regions. By the time something lands in front of you for decision making, we expect, if we've done our jobs well, that you're very well informed and had a chance to really understand the topics as they come to you. So very much appreciate your attention here tonight and joining us.
Thank
so
you.
we do
Appreciate
have,
that.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. So we also have with us Ron Gendro, who you've met before, and I think we'll be hearing from Ron when we get to the portion on the legislative. And then looking around the tiles, I'm not seeing other than our Fish, Wildlife, and Park staff from the region who you've had a chance to meet a number of times. So with that, Vivica, I think I'll turn it back to you.
Sure. So I thought, since we have the new faces in the room tonight, it would be worthwhile to do a quick round robin, but not take too much time. And what I mean by that is a round robin with our CAC members. And so I'm going to look at the list here, and I'll just call on folks. And if you wouldn't just mind introducing yourself, where you live, just a quick intro if you want to hit a couple other points, but try to keep it short so we can get around the room. And I also wanted to mention, as we go around, I'll call on him too, but we do have Tim Aldrich here, and we've asked Tim if he would like to continue attending when he can as a retired CAC member. And for those who weren't on the CAC when Tim was a CAC member, he has been around since the CACs first started in 2003 or 4, I believe. So before he was a commissioner, he was one of our CAC members. So he is here tonight, and I'll let him say hi, but I just thought I'd give you that little bit of context. So the first lucky person on my list here is Tracy.
My name, I guess, is John Tracy. I'm a rancher north of Drummond, between Drummond and Helmville. I guess I've been on one of the original CAC members from the get-go. I think it was Louis Bowman and myself. Other than that, we are, being a rancher, we're dealing a lot with these predator issues with the wolves, now the grizzly bears, and well, of course, always had the mountain lion, but we're dealing with the wolves now as we speak. We're starting a calving season, having some issues with them, but we're going along as best we can. That's about all I have.
Thanks, Tracy. Bill? Bill, are you?
Figure out how to get my microphone back on. Took me a second. Bill Mitchell, a retired beekeeper, sold my business a couple years ago. Born and raised in Missoula, spent my whole life here. And I think I'm in my second term on the CAC, so I'm one of the newer members. But love to hunt and fish and anything outdoors.
Thanks, Bill. Carrie?
Hey guys, took me a minute there, sorry. I'm Kerry Schmidt. I live in Missoula. I'm an attorney here in town. I have been on the West Slope Chapter Trout Unlimited board for quite some time. I'm obviously an avid hunter, fisher, recreator. Didn't get my Smith permit this year, but other than that, life is good. I'm looking forward to getting to know the new members. So welcome aboard.
You can still buy your $5 chance to get the super permit, right? Everett.
My name is Everett. I'm in Stevensville. I've been on the CAC first term, 3 years now. I'm involved with both types of hunter ed here in the state, and for a day job, I lead the Montana Master Hunter program. So really involved in kind of all things hunting in Montana. And as Mike pointed out earlier, I've got a falcon. So anytime you want to come by, just let me know. That's about it.
Cool. Thanks, Everett. Jane?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Bennett. I live in Missoula. I'm a retired high school principal and am interested in all things FWP. And just to keep it brief here, Vivica, I just want you to pass on kudos to whoever is making those Wednesday Wild videos. I just looked at the one about how to tell the difference between a bobcat and a lynx. It was awesome. They're really good. And so who's ever doing it, keep it going. Thanks.
Will do. The person who does most of those is really gives credit to starting that and starring in them. So she's awesome. Yeah, she's really good. All right, let's see. Kit.
Hi everyone, Kit Fisher. I am here in Missoula. I'm relatively new to the CAC. This is only my second meeting or so. I've been on the board of Hellgate Hunters and Anglers, our local rod and gun club here for 7 years. Professionally, I work for National Wildlife Federation. Yeah, look forward to the discussion.
Kylie?
Hey there, Kylie Paul. I am in Missoula. I have a washing machine going on in the background. Hopefully that's not too loud, sorry. And a cat, again, starring in a Zoom meeting for the second time for the day. And I work for Missoula County in the Community and Planning Services Department, Parks, Trails, and Open Lands program, working on natural resources there. And my just interest in this, of course, is wildlife. I've got a wildlife background with both work and education, and I do recreation of almost all kinds, but not actually that much in hunting, but in all the other ways that I can think of. So thanks.
Thanks, Kylie. Lori?
Okay, got it. I'm Lori Johnston. I was born and raised in Superior, and I'm a Mineral County Commissioner. I love to hunt and fish. I'm on my second term and the CAC, and my biggest passion is spending time with my 2 little grandkids. So anyway.
Very good. Leah?
Wow, that like took a second for that to work. Anyways, hi, I'm Leah Bossler. On my first term in CAC. I recently would describe myself as a wildland firefighter and someone who most prefers the outdoors while I'm hunting alone. However, in the last 6 months, I have been extremely sick from COVID, found out I was pregnant and just gave birth at 25 weeks. So now I can describe myself as a NICU parent. So I'm trying to figure out how everything's going to go forward and what my occupation will be. So anyways, that's a little bit about me. And I went to the university here. I have a degree in environmental studies and climate change. But what I'm really finding myself most fascinated with is finding creative solutions between 2 opposing groups that really actually can work together and find common ground. So we'll see where that gets me.
Thanks, Leah. Matt?
I assume that this is the only Matt on right now. Matt Frigario. I live in Missoula. First term on the CAC. I'm father of a couple young kids. A project manager / kind of engineer in town here for a company called Advanced Material Solutions. Longtime member of the Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and yeah, looking forward to getting off these Zoom calls and finally kind of meeting everybody in person. Thanks.
That's right. We have a new generation of CAC members that have actually we've never met in person. That is kind of odd. And you reminded me, Matt, that we do have another Matt who happens to be up next. And I forgot we had double names. So you just got lucky on going first. So other Matt.
All right, I think I'm ready to go. Hi, I'm Matt Quinlan. Live about 10 miles south of Missoula and work in Missoula. I'm a teacher at Willard Alternative High School and father and weekend warrior of basically all things outdoors and the classic jack of all trades, master of none. Way too many hobbies, not enough time. If there was one area of focus, it might be whitewater canoeing and waterways and fishing access sites and their use. And happy to be serving on my second term of CAC and looking forward to the next steps. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Pat.
Hello, I live, garden and play in the 9 Mile area. I am also new to the CAC, so I do miss the in-person meetings. I do not like Zoom very much. And I hear the dinners can be pretty good, so I hope we get back to that. I'm on the Missoula County Board. I'm the chair of that. I'm also chair of the 9 Mile Wildlife Work Group, and I'm on the RAC for Mineral County, and I retired from the Forest Service as a wildlife biologist. And that's that.
All right, thank you. Ron.
Thank you, Vivica. I'm Ron Skinner. I live down in Corvallis. I also have a place down in Sula. I've been on the land trust boards, been involved in the outfitting business and guide schools for the last 40 years. I'm a hunter, fisherman, very interested in the land hunter relationships that we have down in the valley and throughout Western Montana. And I'm a newbie. This is first time. It's very interesting. I find it.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ron. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Train, and I've been in Montana for about 35 years now, and I am a first-time CAC member, and I am an avid hunter and recreationist, not a fisherman. I don't have a hawk, don't have a cat, but I've got 2 dogs laying back here that I spend a lot of time in the backcountry with. And my interest in being on the CAC is I want everyone to enjoy the Montana outdoors, and for everyone to be able to do what they want to do in the outdoors. I think it needs a compromise between groups sometimes, so that everyone can enjoy Montana's outdoors. And that's where I come from.
Thank you. Tim. Tim, do we still have you on?
Yes, I'm still on. I'm trying to be very quiet, Vivica. I saw that Tom Poster was still there, would probably get introduced before but anyway, no, it's just a real pleasure to have an opportunity to sit in and hear the discussions and the input from the members and the people that are here to provide some messages to those people. I've enjoyed since Mr. Manley and I were part of the first the group in 2004, and it's just I like to stay connected. As a commissioner, I had the opportunity to be connected in some different ways, and now I'm just very happy to be able to sit in and listen and continue to stay engaged.
Well, it's good to have you here, Tim. Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. And those that I don't know yet, I look forward to meeting you all in person one of these days rather than on a Zoom. Those were my grandchildren bopping over the back of my head there for a second. Part of COVID, babysitting daily. But hey, I've been on the CAC for about 7 years now. It's really been great. I'm a retired Forest Service administrator, biologist. And right now I'm spending a lot of time as I'm a board member of the Montana Wildlife Federation, and it's a pretty busy time. And look forward to, again, meeting all of you in person here sometime in the very near future.
I know we have somebody on the phone. Who do we have on the phone? Is that you, Louis?
It is.
Well, hi, you can
got me,
introduce
Vivica?
yourself. Yep, we got you. We can hear you well.
Okay. Louis Bauma from up at Lincoln here, landowner and a business owner up here in the Blackfoot Valley, along with Tim and a couple other ones in there also, one of the original members in here. And I've enjoyed it very, very much for my terms in there. I've learned so much in the operation of the FWP that I hope I still got some things to say, you know what I mean, that I could help people. That was my object in getting back in here. I've worked in wildlife issues down here on a personal basis for many, many, many years. Our local game wardens, everybody that I worked with here in Lincoln, I think we've appreciated each other and built a rapport together for many of it. It's always amazed me to how much you could learn from wildlife if we just got the patience to sit and wait. It's amazing what it could do. Other than that, guys, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all face to face one of these days.
Thank you, Louis. Do we still have you on, Greg? I saw you at one point. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the right name in front of me.
Oh, look at
but
that. You're disguised as Robin.
That's my girlfriend's name, and I'm not tech savvy enough to switch it. I don't actually own a computer. But I'm Greg Price. I'm Missoula. This is my 8th year on the CAC. I'm a small scale organic farmer. I grow fruits and vegetables for a local nonprofit here. And I hunt and fish and do all kinds of other recreational activities. I spent 10 years doing wildlife education, mostly around grizzly bears and DNA research and so forth. So I've been in Missoula for 26 years. So looking forward to meeting everybody in person too.
Great. Thank you, Greg. And did I miss anyone? It's very possible that I missed someone going through this list.
Did want to note, Vivica, that Commissioner Tabor has joined us again. I renamed his cell phone number so that it came up as Pat, and but he's joining us by phone now.
Okay, great. Is there anybody else that I missed? Okay. Well, thank you guys. I think that was nice to spend just a little bit of time going around and doing that. So the first real big thing we have on our agenda is the legislative update. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna have Ron Gendro kick that off for us. He is one of the legislative liaisons for FWP and has been tracking everything, of course, very closely in that role. But then we also have a lot of people in the room, you guys, that have your own role and experience with this session. And so then we'll just transition to kind of open it up to questions, discussion, updates in that way. But I will turn it over to Ron to start.
Good evening, everybody. So just so you know, like, this is a pretty busy week in the session. There's transmittal kind of deadlines are coming up. And so I think still meeting right now is the Senate Fish and Game Committee. So they're trying to bang out some bills before transmittal and get them on the floor. So it's been a busy week for sure. My plan is just to kind of go through some of the bill, or there's like about 50 of them that we've been kind of tracking that are still alive and kind of plugging along in the legislative session. So I'll just kind of get going. If you have any questions, I'll kind of make it as quick as I can because there's like 50 of them, like I said. So try to kind of cruise through them. If you have any questions about, or does anybody have any questions about a bill, just let me know. So the first one is House Bill 40. And it was brought by Representative Curdy out of the Missoula there. It's basically a bill that revises the laws on mandatory decontamination of vessels and ballasts and bladders. So it's basically about those boats, those big ski boats that have those big bladders in them, wakeboard boats. And what it does is it kind of gives the department a little bit of a chance to have some say in which boats. We were having our check stations get pretty backed up with these boats because it's about a 40-minute time to decontaminate these boats. And so it kind of just gives some leeway for the department to actually determine which boats get decontaminated. So it's kind of a cleanup bill from last session.
Hey Ron, quick question for you. When you run through these, would you be able to say if the department is supporting the legislation?
Oh, you bet. I sure will. And that bill we were informational on. And just so you guys know, and I think I've talked about it before in some of these CACs, is we've really moved away from being opponents, proponents. We're mostly informational on most bills. If we are a opponent on a bill, it means that it's probably have some really dire effects on either our funding or our working relationships with some folks and those kind of things. So, but yeah, so most of our stuff was informational. A lot of times we were proponents on bills that were our bills. So, and that one we were informational on. The next one is House Bill 45. It's basically revised the come home to hunting license requirements. It's really a simple change. It just now requires folks, and that's a discounted license. When folks come back to Montana, it's a discounted non-resident license. It's about half the price of what a big game combo costs. And what it does is this bill just changed it to make it have taken a hunter safety class and had a hunting license in Montana. And we were seeing a lot of folks kind of cheating the system where they were just going online and taking a hunter safety course, never ever lived in Montana. And so that fixes that. In fact, that bill was signed by the governor just the other day. And obviously we were a proponent of that bill. That was one of our bills. And I'm just going to keep going unless somebody has a question, just speak up. House Bill 48. That one is brought by Representative Steve Gist out of Great Falls. Basically, that bill just removes occupation from hunting and fishing license application requirements. So when you go to get your license, the person you buy the license from will no longer ask what your occupation is. That was one of our bills. We were a proponent. That one is in the Senate. It passed the House already, just waiting to get to the Senate. The next one, House Bill 54, brought by Carrie Seekins Crow. That one just revises who qualifies to accompany non-resident youth accommodation licenses. Basically, it allows, I believe, step parents and legal guardians to accompany non-resident youth. We were a proponent. That's been passed both houses and it's on the governor's desk, waiting to be signed. The next one is House Bill 108, brought by Representative Logie, who's usually at these meetings. I imagine he's pretty busy tonight. But that bill, it just revises trespass laws regarding permission for hunting. And basically that bill, and we were informational on that bill. So what that bill did is it just kind of it increased the fines. So the fine for that, for trespassing was, or hunting without land permission was $135. And what it did is it said not less than $135 or more than $500. And then for a second offense within a 3-year period would be a mandatory loss of privileges.
And Ron,
I'm
I thought I
here,
might
Ron.
mention that, yeah, he's going to do it himself. I wanted to mention that Dinley joined us here just a second ago.
Oh, cool.
We just got out of committee and on that one, that was a PLPW bill. And we heard from so many landowners that said that the trespass just kept happening, reoccurring. The justice of the peace would let people off. And so this stipulated the fines to be a little stricter, and that actually can take away your hunting privileges. And that was part of the idea. And that's what, like I say, it came from PLPW with a lot of rancher support because of the repeated trespass.
Thanks,
Well,
Representative.
very good idea.
So the next one is House Bill 119, also by Representative Logie. And that one is a bill that requiring the Fish and Wildlife Commission approval of certain landowner elk licenses. And this was kind of a cleanup bill from the last session. The commission used to give approval on these licenses, and for whatever reason, it kind of got dropped off, and it was just going to be determined by the department. This was also a PLPW bill. There was one of the commissioners that was on the PLPW felt strongly that it should go through the commission. And so that one also has passed through the House, and it is now in the Senate. And we were informational on that bill also. Anything you'd like to add, Representative Logie?
That one actually, the way it was the old 454 bill, and the way it was written, it was final approval was the commission, the way it originally came out. And last session, it got changed a little bit. And when that change came about is when it ended up going back to the department, or going to the department, and the commissioners actually wanted it back as the final.
Okay, the next bill is House Bill 120. That was also introduced by Representative Logie. This was also a PLPW bill. It just changed the who is able to apply for bonus points. So we were having issues with people basically when they had probably a child and they became 6 months old, they were then buying bonus points for those folks. And this just says that you have to be eligible to purchase a license before you can apply for those licenses. It also helps out with folks that have been lost their privileges to for hunting and fishing privileges that have been lost. These folks would now no longer be able to purchase bonus points.
Hey, Ron?
Yes.
One thing real quick. I want to a thank you to Representative Logie for carrying all these bills and his due diligence that he does in the legislature. It's been an honor and pleasure to work with him both at PLPW and in the legislature and with CACs. So thank you.
Well said, Director.
Thank you so much.
And that bill is also passed through the House and is in the Senate currently. And we were informational on that bill also. The next bill, House Bill 138, it's revising trap and snare tagging requirements. This was really just a cleanup bill. It was just, currently there are in law, there are two different tags, one for a trap, one for a snare. This basically just cleaned up that language, make it only one tag. If whether you're trapping or snaring, you put that one tag on a trap or a snare. We were also informational on that one. That one has also passed the House and it is in the Senate. The next one, House Bill 152, brought by Representative Neil Durham out of Eureka. It's requiring drain plugs to be disengaged to prevent aquatic invasive species. That one has passed the House and has been transmitted to the Senate also. We did not take any position on that bill. House Bill 163, brought by Representative Fielder out of Thompson Falls. That one revises the Fish and Wildlife Commission members. We did not take a position on that. This bill has passed the House also and is in the Senate. That bill basically goes from the 5 commissioners to 7 commissioners. And basically their areas are just the equal what our regional Fish, Wildlife, and Parks regions are. And we did not take a position on that bill. House Bill 202, that was also brought by Representative Logie. It makes certain special hunting licenses a once-in-a-lifetime harvest. That has passed the House and is into the Senate. We were informational on that bill also. Anything you want to add to that, Representative Logie?
Yeah, that one, what it is the once in a lifetime harvest. So if you did get a sheep or a goat or moose tag, you could, if you didn't get an animal or if you didn't have a chance to hunt, you'd still be able to be in the drawing after 7 years wait. And it's still, you could be back in the drawing for ewes or for an antlerless moose if there happens to be that area available. And then there are the five unlimited sheep areas don't count in the once in a lifetime harvest.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thanks to Denley for carrying that. I had talked with him last year about that and little passion project of mine. So I just wanted to say thanks for taking the heat, man. It was I watched you online and I think you did a great job, Denley.
Thank you.
Well, I guess it's halfway there now, so. The next bill is House Bill 224, brought by Representative Fielder. That allows for snaring of wolves in Montana by licensed trappers. That has also passed the House and it is in the Senate. We were informational on that bill. That one still allows the commission to, it still does allow the commission to set areas aside where they are allowed or not. House Bill 225, brought by Representative Fielder. It just establishes wolf trapping season dates. And that also allows the commission to adjust those if needed. That has passed the House, is in the Senate, and we were also informational on that one. The next bill is House Bill 242, brought by Caleb Hinkle. It allows the commission to establish a muzzle loading heritage hunt season, which is basically going to be, I think, the week after the close of the general season. And it's basically for traditional muzzle loaders. And it's a 9-day season. That has also passed the House and is in the Senate. We are also informational on that bill. House Bill 260 was brought by Representative Seth Burgley out of Joliet. That one revises non-resident fishing license fees. That has passed the House, has gone to the Senate. Basically, that just makes a one-day non-resident, takes it from a 2-day non-resident license to a 1-day non-resident instead of a 10-day, breaks it down to a 5-day license. We were also informational on that bill. House Bill 281. It was brought by Representative Steve Gunderson out of Libby. This bill basically revises laws related to e-bikes. And basically what it does, breaks it down into 3 divisions, a type 1, a type 2, and a type 3, kind of by what the standards for e-bikes are made from, I guess, or what they're, I guess I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but so it breaks down into those three zones. And we didn't take any position on that bill at all. That has passed the House and is into the Senate.
That was partly to try to get a little closer to some of the Forest Service regulations and maybe put some e-bikes behind some of the closed roads.
And I guess that's what a lot of other states have these, it's defined that way by other, I think 38 other states is what I think he said in committee. It's kind of just making, and truthfully, the law now for e-bikes is kind of, doesn't make that much sense. So this is a kind of a cleanup bill for that. House Bill 302, brought by Joshua Kashmir out of Fort Benton. It's require county approval to relocate bison. Looks like that one is still in committee, has not passed the House yet. We did not take any position on that bill. The next bill, House Bill 305, brought by Representative Seth Burgley out of Joliet. It just revises laws related to roadside menageries, wildlife sanctuaries, and zoos. It's basically a cleanup language. It kind of separates wildlife sanctuaries from roadside menageries. So there'll be another kind of a permit allowed for folks to have a wildlife sanctuary. So really just a kind of a cleanup bill. We were informational on that bill, and it looks like that bill is still in the House. Has not passed out of the House yet. House Bill 318, brought by Representative Homeland out of Miles City. It clarifies the definition of a bison. That has not passed that. Well, it probably has passed the House by now. Looks like it was scheduled for 3rd reading yesterday, so it looks like it probably has passed the House. We did not take an opinion on that bill. And I think that bill, correct me if I'm wrong, Representative Logie, just basically says that if it's ever been held in captivity, it is no longer a wild bison. Is that correct?
Correct.
The next bill, House Bill 353, brought by Representative Steve Gunderson out of Libby. It authorizes the replacement of hunting licenses when harvested game is unfit for human consumption. And not only for the same year, but then it also allows if you ran out of time on a moose permit or something and you had a animal that come up with a CWD positive, that you could have that, you could get that permit again the next year. We were informational on that, and it looks like that bill has probably passed the House and is on to the Senate.
And that was basically proposed. I think there were 2 moose up in his area that had CWD, and they were too late in getting replacement tags.
And also in that, it requires that the person give up the whole animal when they get the replacement. So they couldn't kill a trophy that has CWD, keep the antlers, and then get another one.
Could you guys clarify one thing there? So you get that same permit the following year, even if it's a special permit?
Yep.
So then do they then subsequently pull other permits out of the draw?
It would probably depend on, it depend on what the commission would like to do. So they would either either have a second drawing if there's enough, the moose population is good enough to do so, or whatever that animal is, or else possibly pull that person out and get another draw out of it.
What are
You
the
wouldn't get-
definitions around? Go ahead.
You wouldn't get one for both the end of one season and the next one. It would be just, you could make your choice, basically, the way it was written.
Right. A lot of times the CWD, you don't find out about that till probably the season's close to over, right? Or potentially over.
Correct. And that was part of the reasoning for the following year.
But it doesn't allow a person to keep the antlers and then go and get another one the next year. So you have to give up your whole animal.
Does it have to be assumed from natural causes?
It got written in the bill that just because you let the meat spoil, you wouldn't be able to go in and get another one.
Yeah, so it's for disease, or like if it had an injury and it was, had some really bad injury where it was unfit for human consumption, and that would be when you get to get a replacement.
I have a feeling that everybody with a special permit is going to start getting their animals tested for CWD.
The next one is House Bill 382. It's just generally revised the use of exploding targets. Basically, and that was brought by Representative Curdy out of Missoula. And I believe how that was written, it was basically if it's a high or a fire danger, if there is a fire danger, then you couldn't use exploding targets on FWV property or state lands. We did not take a stance on that bill. That bill has passed the House and has been now on to the Senate. Next one's House Bill 468. It's allow hound hunting and chase seasons for black bears. That was brought by Representative Fielder. And it gives the commission the ability to change where those areas are going to be open or where they're not going to be open.
And it added a chase season to just not a hunting part of it, but it comes out to June 15th. It just came out of committee tonight, just before I got here.
Yeah, so that'll be going to the House floor here in the next couple days. House Bill 505, that's brought by Representative Wiley Galt. And that bill is kind of revises laws and issuance of elk license used on private lands. I'll probably explain this one a little bit because it's kind of an interesting concept. So what this does is at an area that's at objective, so it's at elk objective, it has to be at elk objective, can't be under, can't be over, that the landowner could then get landowner elk tags, kind of like the landowner sponsored elk tags, like the landowner sponsored deer tags. They would get 10 of them, up to 10. So again, it'd have to be at objective. So kind of what this does is it encourages these landowners that areas that are at or under or over objective get to objective. And so you can only get to objective two ways. You either change the objective or you harvest elk. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is that it creates basically a choice when you buy your elk tag, your general elk tag, to basically say, I'm only going to be willing to hunt cow elk on areas that are over objective on public or on private land. So basically you're saying it's basically you're going to give up your bull tag to kill a cow. Okay. So what that does is then it encourages those hunters that choose to do that to work with landowners to find places to hunt cows. So the incentive for that person is that they will get 5 bonus points for the time when they decide to put in for a bull tag, for a special bull tag. So if you do that 3 years in a row, then you would get 15 bonus points that get squared. So that takes people, so it does a couple actually things. It takes people out of the drawing because they are deciding to kill, just harvest a cow. It helps landowners get those cow numbers down to get to that objective. And it also gives that guy a better chance when he goes to draw like a 380 tag to draw that tag. Director, did I miss anything on that?
Yeah, one thing, Ron, what it does is the landowner part of it, the licenses are only good for the landowner's deeded property. So it restricts that. The idea is, like Ron indicated, is to get landowners talking to each other to get an objective. So either harvest more elk, or you work together to say, what is the tolerance for elk on this thing, and try to get the tolerance or objective raised for that area that everybody agrees with in front of the commission. So sportsmen, landowners, the whole bit, try to work together to get this done.
So that's House Bill 505, and I believe we're probably going to be supportive on that. Is that correct, Hank?
I would think so. I'm waiting for the clearance from the governor's office, but we did work with the sponsor on this. He had asked us to work with some ideas. His idea was going to be like Senate Bill 245 from a couple sessions ago, where we've just put in statute shoulder seasons and a different license type for it. So this still gives the ability for the commission to work on things, and the goal is to get at objective. So it makes people work together. So we thought this is a better option for them.
And we've had a lot of comments about it so far. Like it's like, oh, that's thinking outside the box, and I think that's it really is. And I think it's kind of a cool idea. So we'll see how it goes.
I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, on that.
Sure.
Number one, are those resident-only licenses, or are those good for non-residents? And the second one, is the landowner able to sell them, or is he just able to give them to people he want? How are they distributed?
So the first question is, they're not restricted to resident, because a resident doesn't have to draw a license, a non-resident does. So they are non-resident licenses per se, just like the landowner sponsored deer. Those are non-resident landowner sponsored deer licenses. So the thing is, they can't sell them or do anything like that with them. They can just have it for an opportunity for somebody to come and hunt on their property. And the other side of the coin is where we get the answer is only for the resident or non-residents that opts to do that, trade in their A5 or B10 license. They're restricted to hunt only on private land that are, on a private land to hunt on these things. So the issue I heard from a lot of landowners is they'll give permission to friends or other people to come in, and they'll shoot bulls when they say they're only going to shoot cows. This way, they have some control over it. They can only harvest a cow on that license. And if they work with the landowner early enough, they can say, get a place to hunt, they're going to hunt. They can ask the landowner if they want them to shoot 2 cows. They can buy a B license for that area. So the idea is to, like I said, once again, to focus on elk harvest and try to get the harvest down. So one of the things we did a little bit different with this, since we had worked with the sponsor on it, when we put this idea out, I had a meeting with all the different groups, Wildlife Federation, Backcountry Hunting, representatives from there, stock growers, trying to think of who else, UPalm, just the people that usually wouldn't come together in a room for a meeting. And we explained what the bill was going to do before we let them look at it. Because if you just read it, you're going to throw all kinds of grenades at this thing because you don't understand what it's trying to do. So we tried to get an understanding, then they can make an educated argument if they don't like it. So that was a different approach. And I think most of the people that were there appreciated that approach, to kind of bring people together, explain what we were doing, why we were doing it. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
So any other questions on that one? That one hasn't had a hearing yet. I'm not sure when that one's going to be, but
one question. So why the 5 bonus points though?
So that would give incentives for you to give up your A tag for your general elk tag.
Yeah, I understand that, but why? I mean, 5 doesn't seem a little bit excessive. So a guy who does this for 3 years can essentially move to the top of the heap?
That's correct. It is excessive. The idea is that guy's going to decide to shoot. He's going to give up something to shoot for cows. So if you don't like this is an open bill, you can definitely bring that up for an amendment if you think that's too high. But that's kind of what we settle at to start with as a starting point to bring it out there. So
I guess I'm just wondering about the FWP's impact when there you have non-residents applying for coveted tags. You have a lot of people applying for coveted tags who kind of can see where they're at in the standing. Like, okay, I've got 14 points, I'll have 15 points. And then all of a sudden you start seeing these people with, oh, this guy just came out with 25 points, 30 points, 35 points. You know, what's I guess how's the long term?
That is an issue with it to look at. Like I said, but you have to have some type of incentive to have people do this to give up their A tag. And then focus.
Yeah, I wasn't part of this bill, but I know what, hearing from some of the over objective landowners, they want some way to entice those hunters over there because some of the programs just aren't quite working. So it's one way it does entice the hunters, and that's what some of the.
Yeah, it's only actually dealing with populations that are within objective currently. So this isn't addressing districts that are over objective, correct?
Well, that's incorrect. It addresses, you have to be at objective to get the licenses for a non-resident. So the goal for the landowner is to be at objective, work to be at objective. Talk to other landowners, whatever it is, to get that number down. The license that the hunter gets is good for any land, but it has to be private land to shoot a cow.
It has to be over objective too.
Oh, is that what it is, over objective? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's at objective to get the bonus, to get the extra licenses, over objective to where you can hunt them.
I've got a question on that too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you get the 5 bonus points regardless of whether or not you harvest an animal?
Yeah, that's the way it's set up right now. But I've heard that question by several people saying, could you make it where they had to show proof that they harvested an animal in order to get the 5?
Right. Yeah, I would support that because you could just get a B tag in some other district and get a cow for 3 years and automatically have a lot of extra bonus points.
Right. And I can guarantee you, doing this stuff for 17 years, whatever we come up with, somebody will game it.
Right.
So
thank you.
That's the part of this. So once again, we're throwing this out there. You know how the process works. You can go to the hearing and give your comment at that point and see if they look for amendments. But we want people to understand what the rationale was and why we brought this forward.
And I'm taking notes.
I only wanted to say one other thing, and I guess it's just a little bit of frustration on this bill is that I've heard and share is that we have been sitting around the table, sportsmen and landowners, for the last, forever. And I felt like we've been making a lot of progress towards reaching collaborative solutions. So it seems a little bit, I don't know, more off base when there's legislative fixes for solutions that I would hope that would be discussed more on the local level with groups like these, where we have been having these types of conversations.
Well, and I appreciate that, sir. But my job, I worked for the governor, and one of my charges was building landowner sportsman relationships. So appreciate that you may believe that you have that in that area. What you heard on the campaign trail is contrary to what you're saying, that they're not out there as much as they should be. And that's what we're looking for, is things like that to try to bring it together. If you've got ideas that can work, by all means, we love to hear them, love to do them. That's what my role is going to be, is try to bring these things together and get more access and more helping of the sportsmen and the landowners.
If I can jump in too, I guess, one of the things that I guess I find interesting about this, our numbers for harvesting elk, what are we, 10%, of the number of hunters who are out there are harvesting elk. It's not like everybody's getting an animal. So it seems to me that there's got to be a better way to connect people who are willing to find a cow with landowners who are over objective, you know, getting these access issues. And, you know, I think that, you know, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, you know, the answer to Bill's question is that this is not a situation where, you know, these are going to be basically handed out to outfitters and landowners are going to start making a bunch of money on the public's wildlife and de-incentivizing public access on private land. I think that's an important thing to think about with this bill.
No, I appreciate that, sir. That's kind of the motivation behind this, is trying to get those groups together.
Director, it's Tom Puchler. I was just curious, as your discussions with the landowners out there, are they seeming to be more receptive to providing access? Because it's during the general season that we have a real problem with getting people on a lot of private ground.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is going to help incentivize that to some degree?
Well, I'm hoping it's a step towards the right direction is what I'm hoping, as we do this. And it behooves the land, like I said, once again, it behooves the sportsman to talk to the landowner. More of that thing if they're going to get permission. So let's say you opt to do this for a year. You're going to want to know where you can go hunt. You're going to go talk to a landowner about it and say, can I do this? The landowner, you say, yeah. You're going to do that introduction, meet them, rather than waiting for the department or somebody else to make access for you to get in there and hunt. It's the ownership on both parties to get this done is the way I see it. And that's, I think, is something, as what I brought up in my confirmation hearing, is I think that's where we fall a little bit short. I love block management, a great tool, but it's also been a path of least resistance for a lot of hunters. We got a couple of generations that have just failed to even meet with a landowner, just go and hunt on property that's class 1. You go out and do it. And I've asked ComEd to add in our hunter education course that you have how to meet a landowner, or how to talk to a landowner and ask permission the proper way. I took that when I was 11 years old, so 52 years ago. I took my hunter education, and that was a big part of it, was learning how to get permission to hunt on property. So I think we have some things. I'm not blaming one group over another group. I think we just need to start communicating a lot better. And I appreciate that there are groups that are working on that. And we just want to try to get tools to make this a little bit better.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Director Everett Headley here. I just wanted to say I really appreciate your willingness to think outside the box here and come up with solutions that are really different, because I think we've struggled a lot with not only landowner sportsman relationships, but access issues, and then just tolerance levels for elk. And so, you know, taking a page maybe from Devil's Kitchen a little bit and
Yes.
just thinking about how we might be able to find creative ways. I think 5 bonus points might be a little bit much. I don't plan on ever drawing 380 in my life anyway, so I'm not too, you know, I'm not too upset about that. But I think the idea that we're just going to give a tag and that's just going to solve a problem, I don't think that exists. And so finding ways like this to be able to give landowners another tool in the toolbox, I think is really important. My concern long term is, you know, of course, ranching for wildlife and, you know, being able to transfer tags. And I know we're kind of precluding that here a little bit. I just want to make sure that we're cautious when we move into that world, that we do that. So again, I just want to say, I think outside the box, gosh darn, we need to do a little bit more of that.
Well, sir, I appreciate that. And I can tell you, ranching for wildlife is not a plan while I'm here. It's not something I think we need to do. But I do believe that there is a tolerance level that actually the landowner, the sportsman, everybody, the community has to come to. So I asked one landowner, for example, he said, Hank, you realize I'm 900% over objective? I said, yes, sir. I said, what does 100% look like? He goes, well, hell, we can't go that low. So that's exactly what it is. They understand that people expect to see elk on the landscape. They expect to do these things. They expect, you know, friends and families and other people come and hunt them. So the idea is, what is that tolerance? And that tolerance should be set by the local community in the hunting district, and then confirmed by the commission rather than an arbitrary number that doesn't just sit there. So this is kind of motivated to get them to maybe move that number as well by talking to different landowners. So you've got one that harbors wildlife. Well, it affects him after the season because he's harboring wildlife. It affects his neighbors. Well, the neighbors can put peer pressure then to say, we have some tools to get these things killed. That's where we're thinking, that kind of thing. So you're absolutely right. We're trying to think outside the box and give some solutions and some tools to people to work together.
I could jump in for just a second. I'd like to piggyback a little bit on what Everett was talking about. I really appreciate the creative solutions as someone who focuses on putting meat in the freezer, not having antlers on the wall. I feel like a lot of hunters are missing out on those opportunities to create that success for FWP objections and then our objectives, and also for landowners for them not having as much pressure from grazing. However, I just do want to add that sometimes the communication between a hunter and a landowner really could happen, and sometimes it's almost like as a hunter, it's hard to get the landowners to be receptive of that communication. So maybe having a way to incentivize or ease that communication could be great. I spent days this year doing a lot of research, getting some like satellite imagery maps, planning out exactly where I would hunt, exactly where I'd park. I sent, I think it was about 10 letters, great outline of my hunt plan. And I didn't get anyone to respond back. And anytime I tried to go door to door, that people just didn't want to talk. I think a lot of that plays into election year tension. And so you might want to look at some of that, the reasons why those conversations aren't happening, in addition to looking at just purely the tag incentives. Because if you just put those tag incentives out that don't solve those communication issues, you might not get as quality as a result with adding in that communication pathway. So just a little thought.
No, yes, ma'am, I appreciate that. And like I said, this is a start from our perspective, rather than going, we're doing cow seasons and we're going to put them in statute. We're going to do late season. So it was, like I said, try to get to a goal or objective and work through that objective with trying to get people to talk. And we're going to have some people that are not going to talk. They bought land here for whatever reason. They don't care if you want to hunt the property. They're not going to let you. So, you know, the landscape is changing as landowners change, and we just got to adapt to that and try to figure out more incentive ways to get it done. So I appreciate your statements. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on that one? We'll kind of get moving on here then. Senate Bill 38 brought by Senator Gauthier. That was again one of our bills. We were supportive of it, obviously. It's just basically a cleanup bill from a bill that passed last session that created an extra non-resident winter trail pass, I guess. So what we're doing is basically changing it from one trail or two trail non-resident trail passes to basically just a resident trail pass, winter trail pass, and a non-resident trail pass. And we've also included a few other, we've included dog sleds in there also. But that bill has passed the Senate and is on to the House now.
I've got that one in my desk whenever it gets scheduled for hearing.
Thanks, Representative Logie. The next bill is Senate Bill 60. And that was brought by Senator Flowers out of Bozeman. That's to require trapper education for certain resident trappers. That bill we were supportive of, and it wasn't one of our bills, but we did a lot of work with the EQC during that Environmental Quality Council during the session, or in the interim, to kind of get something that we could go forward with. We did a lot of work with that group, so we felt that we should support it. We also worked with the MTA, Montana Trappers Association, to find something that everybody could kind of work with. That has passed the Senate and has been transmitted to the House. Senate Bill 61 brought by Senator Flowers. This is one of our bills. It's allow free fishing on Mother's Day. We were supportive of that bill, of course. That bill has been signed by the governor. So this Mother's Day, it'll be free fishing for all. Senate Bill 98, brought by Senator Gillespie. He's up on the High Line. That bill is revising laws related to grizzly bear take in defense of persons and livestock. We did not take a stance on that bill. It looks like it is still in the House. It looks like it has passed the Senate. It is now in the House. Senate Bill 105, brought by Senator Konauer out of Helena. That bill revises penalties for criminal trespass while collecting antlers and shed antlers or shed horns. Basically, that bill just, what it does is if you are caught basically trespassing to get antlers, that a judge could take your hunting and fishing privileges. That has passed the Senate and is in the House. We were informational on that bill. Senate Bill 111, brought by Senator Molnar out of Laurel, revises laws regarding conditional hunting permits for disabled people. Basically, that allows for those folks to apply for a crossbow to hunt during the archery season. We were informational on that bill. It has passed the Senate and has not had a hearing yet in the House.
A quick question on that one. If
Yeah.
What is the wording in the bill is not quite as clear as one would like. Does the FWP have the ability to review? Because what it essentially amounts to, is the way I've read it, is that someone can go get a note from their doctor saying that they have the difficulty drawing and holding a bow, a regular bow. And then they fill out a form and they take it to the FWP. The FWP reviews it and then gives them a pass to use a crossbow. What is the level of review and ability to reject that form by the FWP? Is it unclear at this time, or is that fairly subjective? I guess when I read it, it seemed very subjective.
I would assume it's going to be very similar to how our other permits are. All those permits, we have an application that they fill out. They take that to their doctor. On that application, it says what the requirements are for that person to get that permit. At that point, then the doctor signs off on that permit saying that he meets those requirements. And I'll let the director probably talk about this a little bit too, because he's had a little bit more experience with this in the past.
Thanks, Ron. So what that does basically is we can't dispute what a doctor says. So if you go in there and basically fake it to a doctor that you have a problem, and a doctor signs off on it that you do, we have to issue it. We don't have a medical doctor review it. The issue comes then is if you see this guy out in the field, like for example, let's say a hunt from a vehicle, and he has to have a companion, and we do all these things, and all of a sudden we see him 300 yards from a truck running down by himself. The only thing we can do then is bring that complaint to the Board of Medical Examiner, that doctor, that he signed off on something fraudulently. And then it'd be between the doctor and the Board of Medical Examiners to say, you need to rescind this.
I guess that was my question. So and you partially answered. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. It has to be a member of the FWP, like a warden or somebody that would have to have the evidence to take to the medical board. It couldn't be a peer or another hunter, something like that.
That's not clear. I can't imagine where it wouldn't be, where it couldn't be somebody that had the documented evidence on this thing that could turn it over. So we haven't tested it. I'm actually the one to put that in there when that bill came out a long time ago, to put that review, because we had no other review other than that. We didn't have an option. So that idea on the review was to go to the Board of Medical Examiner, because the license of the doctor is going to be more critical to him than just giving some okay to somebody. You understand, a doctor, on the doctor's oath on this, they believe that people are, when they come to them, that they're truly injured. They believe they're injured and they work through this. They don't look at it from a perspective that you're trying to fake something.
Yeah, no, it's just there. Yeah, it just seemed like there was a lot of subjectivity in the wording, where I could see where a doctor who maybe is not familiar with archery hunting Could be like someone could just come and be like, oh, I've got, I screwed up my shoulder playing softball. I can't draw a bow. It seems, can you give me this? Can you fill out this form? It's not a big deal, right? And they're just like, oh, sure, yeah, you definitely have a shoulder problem. I could see this one being gamed.
Well,
heavy.
The hunt from a vehicle was gamed for quite a while because we gave, as you remember in the regulations, we gave extra opportunities to youth and people that are restricted to permit to hunt from a vehicle. So all of a sudden we had people walking in, limping in, getting their thing and running out and jumping in their truck, getting their permit to hunt from a vehicle. And that's why I said it was getting abused. But that's why we put that part in there that we required the medical doctor sign off on it. They have this, and then they have to have a companion with them in order to hunt from a vehicle. So that was restrictive on that part. And then the other part was it went in front of the Board of Medical Examiners if there was a dispute.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, it's another part is that, there's, you can use a crossbow in every other hunting season, essentially. And I think most of us that know of archery hunting, one of the hardest parts is successfully, taking an animal is that movement that you have to do to draw that bow and hold it is often what allows that animal to escape.
Yeah, that was a long hearing. Ron, did you sit through that thing?
I just watched it.
Yeah, it was a lot of the things you're bringing up were brought up in that hearing.
Now, the good thing about it is it does have a sunset. The sponsor believes there'll be about 200 people that'll affect. Obviously, we have a different opinion. So the good thing is that this can get evaluated again in I think 2027 or 2025 possibly. I'm not
2025, I thought.
Yeah, so it can get.
Plus, it's not through the House yet. We haven't seen it in committee yet.
Right.
It's only halfway there.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Logie.
Like, what was the FWP's, I guess, stance on it? I didn't quite. It was informational. Is that what I caught?
Yeah, we were informational.
Okay, thank you.
The next one is Senate Bill 1.
Ron, can I ask a quick question about that?
You bet.
Isn't there already a mechanism in the statutes, or at least in the administrative rules, for people to get a bow that is modified that accommodates a disability?
Yes, there is. And then that's what they have to, right now, those folks have to fill out that application to get that modification to their bow.
Okay. And so this just adds crossbows to that modification then?
Yeah, or allows those folks to hunt with a crossbow. Yes. The next one is Senate Bill 115 by Senator Regier up out of Kalispell. This was brought last session. I think it passed last session too, and I think the governor vetoed it. This just makes conservation easements 500 acres or over $1 million in value to be approved by the land board.
Ron, was I correct when I was seeing that? I was looking at that today. That was amended when it first came in. It was at the past statutory language, which was 100 acres and $100,000. It's now 500 acres and $1 million.
That is correct. Yes,
and as well, the amended language amended that for acquisitions as well, right?
Yes. That is correct. Yep. Yeah, so the easements are just for over a value of over $1 million, and then the purchase is 500 acres and over $1 million. That's correct, Randy.
And I did bring an amendment to say that they had to weigh in early on, so it wouldn't be the last minute. Or be made aware of it early on, the land board, so that they couldn't just come.
Right. I think I was seeing that in there, Representative Logie, that as soon as it passes out through the Fish Wildlife Parks Commission or board, the land board's notified.
Yeah, and that was just so that last minute like what happened before, there was some last minute where they tried to stop it. And this would just make everybody aware of what's going on a lot earlier in the process.
And on that bill, we did not take a stance on that bill. The next bill is Senate Bill 116. It's brought by Senator Akeney up out of Colstrip. That basically revising antlerless elk tag license laws. I can let Representative Logie talk about this one. We were informational on this bill. It did pass the Senate and is in the House now. And this was a PLPW bill also.
It was, but your director made some significant changes in there. What this one does, it just lowers the elk, the landowner preference down to 160 acres, but I'll let the director speak on the rest of the bill.
Hold on. Okay, let me look at
A7.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the A7 part of it. We had, thank you. We hadn't been using A7s for, I think, 14 years. So this struck that verbiage in there. So that was a call that I had asked for because I dealt with them, and Mike will appreciate this, Mike Thompson, because I dealt with them in the past and I said, okay, so are we using them anymore? And as this bill came up, we had an opportunity to strike them, so we struck them out of there.
That's why you came out of retirement, isn't it?
Exactly. That was my sole purpose in life. I can go back to retirement.
And let me tell you, the reason I gave him the reminder of A7, because when you just start looking at numbers of bills, with Senate bills, House bills, a number sometimes doesn't mean anything. You think it should, but there's so many bills come at you that they just kind of go together. And so you need a reminder of what the bill is about.
So
the next bill, Senate Bill 143, brought by Senator Ellsworth there from the Bitterroot. It's generally revised laws regarding Class B10 and B11 elk and deer licenses. That was the bill that probably a lot of folks know about, that basically set aside, at the time it was 60% of the elk tag, or B10 and B11 elk tags, or deer tags, to go to outfitters. And they would have an early chance to pay an extra $200 for their clients to get those licenses. That bill has now been pretty much had an amendment put on it on the, I believe it was on the floor that now makes it up to $300. It creates a early, I think a December 1st to January 31st time when anybody can buy those licenses. Any non-resident can buy that extra for the extra $300, buy those. And then they would have a drawing prior up to, I believe, 40%. And on that bill, we were informational. That bill passed on the floor and then was re-referred to Finance and Claims, and they have not had a hearing on that one yet.
any questions on that bill? Okay.
So the next bill is Senate Bill 153 brought by Senator Wellborn out of Dillon. It generally revises laws regarding administration of fish, wildlife, and park lands and waters. We were informational on that bill. It is in hearing. There's actually a bunch of amendments on that one. And what that one did is it kind of changed some of the duties that what the commission did, and took them and gave them to the Parks Board. Probably had a lot to do with some of that Madison stuff. That the Madison was in Senator Wellborn's area. He took maybe took some heat for that. So it kind of took some of those social issues that the commission was dealing with and kind of pushed them over to the Parks Board. Sounds like that bill is going to be changed dramatically. So who knows what it's going to look like when they have a hearing on it again, or when they do executive action.
bill also does contain one of the things I've been talking about for quite a few years, and that's the fishing access sites. And in the bill, the way it would be written would be, it would require a conservation license to be used at, if you use a fishing access site, you'd have to have a conservation license, but it also will put the price of conservation license down for everyone. So the fishermen that have been paying will actually get a little bit of a reward. And then the rafters would end up paying their share to use those fishing access sites that they've been getting for free. So that's part of that bill.
Yeah, thanks, Representative Logie, for adding that. Yeah, so it does drop. I think it drops the license by $2, I believe. The next bill is Senate Bill 255, brought by Senator Flowers out of Bozeman. It creates revenue for a bison management funding. We were informational on that. That bill basically creates a auction like it does for the others, like for moose, sheep, and goat, or like the moose, sheep, and goat tags. Creates an auction. That money would then go into a bison management funding. Also takes the money for the lottery one, where you put in for the $5 lottery to get those bison tags. That money would also go in for the bison management funding. We were informational on that bill. I do not believe, I think they just had a hearing on tonight, so I don't think, I think they may have done the executive action on it. So I think it's still in the, it's either going to the floor or it's been killed, who knows. The next bill, Senate Bill 256. It's revised hunter harassment laws. I believe we didn't take a position on that one, didn't show up for the hearing. And I think what they do is that it went on a locked gate, I believe, that is then considered hunter harassment, or it fits into that hunter harassment statute. The next bill, Senate Bill 267. That's brought by Senator Brown out of Thompson Falls area. It authorizes reimbursement for wolf trapping and hunting. They just had a hearing on that bill tonight. We were informational. And I believe that bill was in the session, last session also. Senate Bill 275. This one is generally revised. This is brought by Senator Jeff Wellborn out of Dillon. Generally revised the Board of Outfitters and outfitting laws and enforcement. Basically what that does is it just changes some of the record keeping that the Board of Outfitters does or required to do. It still requires the outfitters to keep records, but it doesn't require them to transmit them to the Board of Outfitters. We worked a little bit with MOGA on this. We had some things, they were going to basically take all the enforcement power out of there for us. We worked with them and they kept in, basically we kept in the portion where unlicensed outfitter, we can cite them and that'd still be a misdemeanor. Also the records keeping, if they fail to keep records, that would still be a misdemeanor. And the last part was if they didn't turn in a client for violating the law, and that would still be a citation that we can cite. So a lot of the stuff that were in there, we can already cite for any kind of resource issue. We can cite them for the outfitter or the client for that. And any of the other kind of rulemaking things that we can still cite for them for like if they don't have their life jackets in there, we just cite them for not having life jackets. And that bill we were informational on. Senate Bill 306, brought by Senator Lang out of Malta. It's very similar to that other commissioner bill that Representative Fielder brought. However, this one then makes it so that 4 of the commissioners are basically in the ag business, somehow involved in the ag business. We were not involved in the hearing on that one. Senate Bill 314, brought by Senator Brown. It revises laws related to wolf harvest. We were informational on this bill. That was just heard today. Also, they're probably doing executive action on it right now. Just kind of liberalizes, allows the commission to liberalize, I can't even say that word tonight. So then a long day. Liberalize some of the wolf seasons. Senate Bill 337, brought by Senator Lang out of Malta. It's kind of revising laws related to grizzly bear relocation. That bill was heard today in the Senate Fish and Game. We did support this bill, and I will bring it up a little bit to kind of go through what it exactly does. So basically it says that the department may not relocate a grizzly bear listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act, except to release the site previously approved by the commission for relocation of grizzly bears. And the department may respond to grizzly bear listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act that is causing conflict outside of a federal recovery zone. But if the bear is to be relocated, the department may not relocate that bear. And that is basically the gist of that. And I think that is it.
Can I ask a question? I'm going to go back in time here to House Bill 281. And I was just curious, you mentioned that with e-bikes, it would change how access would happen on Forest Service. How can the state law help access to Forest Service for?
I stated that wrong. I stated that a little bit wrong. The idea was to try and match up some of the Forest Service road use was rather the way I should have stated it. It's the classifications. It had something to do with the different size electric motors on it and the size of the bike. So it would just clarify some descriptions, so maybe they can match up with some of the Forest Service. Sorry,
I don't remember if you recall.
Okay, thank you, Danley.
I think I can't remember. I think the Department of Interior maybe last spring, or maybe it was before then. I can't recall. But they basically came out with something very similar to this, where they had the three classes. A class one, so that's a class one bike. The e-bike is equipped with a motor that it provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling, and that ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles an hour. That's one class. Class two is electrically assisted bicycle, which is bicycle equipped with a motor that may be used exclusively to propel the bicycle and that is not capable of providing assistance when the bicycle reaches the speed of 20 miles an hour. Or class three is electrically assisted bicycle, which is a bicycle equipped with a motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling, and that ceases to provide assistance when the bicycle reaches a speed of 28 miles an hour. So it's the same language as that was in that Department of Interior ruling that came out, I think last spring, or it was quite a while, about a year ago, I think.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Ron, I got here a little bit late, but I was wondering, did you do anything on 140, House Bill 147? Did you say anything about that?
I did not talk about that one at that time. It was tabled in committee, but I guess it is no longer tabled in committee.
We pulled it off the table tonight, and actually it'll be on the House floor probably next week. And that one provides a checkoff on your license, and it would go into a fund that there'd be a committee that you could put in for a grant, and it'd be for communities, nonprofit organizations, but more for like high school groups, community projects. That's what the pot of money would go toward, grants to those types of groups. Just got out of the House the committee tonight, so it'll be on the floor. It might get put down. You never know that, but it just came out of the.
And actually, I missed one too. Is Senate Bill 208 by Representative Conauer or Senator Conauer will allow donations to hunger and habitat programs. So when you put in for a permit, you could then say that you want your money to go to the hunger and habitat programs. And that one looks like it's still in the Senate. And I think that's it. Any other questions about anything?
Yes, I do have a question for you.
Ron.
I talked to Betty down here in Hamilton about introducing a bill that would allow non-resident veterans with a disability of a certain percentage to purchase licenses in the state of Montana at resident price or resident cost. And I have had a hard time being in contact with him and find out if he is going to introduce that bill or not. And I know that we had talked to Denley about it a couple months ago, or I had mentioned it to him.
There is one sitting on the table in Fish, Wildlife and Park. And part of that is it could be tied a little bit to Senate Bill 143 on some of the funding. We actually talked a little bit about it tonight, but it's waiting to see about some funding to make up that difference in those prices.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ron, that one actually is a free hunting and fishing for service members, veterans with a 50% disability rating is what that one does.
That's going to be completely free?
That one is, yes. That's House Bill 160.
But that's not for non-residents though.
It did have some for non-resident.
It's got the standard law that's out there right now for non-residents. Didn't change yet. It just, so we do have ability to get non-residents at half price licenses, a certain amount of non-resident combat disabled. So it's not just disabled, but it has to be combat disabled to a certain percentage.
And like I say, we did talk a little bit about it this evening, and it's on the table. I don't know if you know what happens in transmittal. There's certain bills that can go, they have to be done by Wednesday, to House bills to get to the Senate. And vice versa, the Senate bills, some of them have to be done by Wednesday to get to the House. But if they have money involved, then they can last a little longer. And so House Bill 160, with the fact that there would be some cost to those license or costs that would have to be absorbed, kind of waiting to see what that Senate Bill 143 does. And there was that $300 fee, or it started out $200 fee. And so some of that may go into House Bill 160, that fee. And that's why it's sitting on the table right now.
So one point too, Mr. Skinner, there are laws currently that allow for combat disabled to get a free license. So you can donate your license, somebody could donate a license, and then they
You're right. But what I was asking about prior was the same thing that Idaho does, offers the veterans that are non-residents. And I'd like to see Montana reciprocate, or basically the same thing.
So what is there for, how is the rating set up? I apologize, I don't know. I know they have it. Is it a certain percentage?
Idaho is set up at a 40% or greater disability. They have to send in a letter stating that, and that usually is off a CNP exam. And once it's on file in the state of state Idaho, you can buy the tags at resident cost.
So just a 40%?
40% or greater, yes.
I'm heading to Idaho.
I would only add to Idaho that they sharply decreased the amount of those tags available this year.
They did this year.
Yeah,
I think first year they did it, and they did decrease them. I think too many people found out about it, and they had a lot of hunters coming. But this is the first year they decreased the numbers on it.
Does it go through a drawing then, sir? Or what is it when they decrease numbers? Does it have to go through a draw?
It has to go through, well, I think
No.
it is a draw. This is the first year I haven't got an Idaho tags. But in the past, it's just, I've been able to go down to a vendor and buy them over the counter.
No, this past year was their first year, first come, first serve for those tags, and it was
Oh,
it
the
was
second quarter.
kind, for sure.
I
So,
do want to,
The first of December, it was a hot item.
I do want to say out of respect for Commissioner Aldridge that the discussion always comes up when tags start being talked about, cut prices, given away, what's going to happen with quotas and everything. The work that was done by the group that set the license fees, people haven't forgotten that, and they worry. Some people worry about we're interfering with that. Some people don't seem to understand what was done years ago, and it's still something I figure we have to keep in mind too, because that's where our license fee structure came from, was a lot of hard work.
Well, Commissioner Aldrich, you remember 18 months of work on that to come up with 140 and listen to all different groups of people to come up with what our fee structure would look like.
18 months and 18,000 miles.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate your guys' time tonight. I hope it wasn't too dry. But if you ever have any questions, feel free to give me a holler.
And I want to say that Ron Genero is a workhorse up there. So I think you'd all maybe even clap for him. He's doing a great job up there. He's always in communication, and he's working hard. And I don't know if his boss has to push him hard. I don't think he does, but he does a great job for us.
No, he does a phenomenal job, and thank you, Representative. It's something we've worked on for the last couple of sessions to build up that respect and appreciation. So when we go up there, they know that we're there to give them the information for them to make informed decisions. And it's been very, very helpful. So thanks, Ron, for the work you do. And it's very important work. We go through pretty much unscathed on these bills. We don't get beat up like we used to.
Well, I didn't even really talk about the budget, but pretty much our budget went through. I mean, with a few exceptions, our budget was passed pretty much without any issues. And we didn't get everything we asked for, but it went through pretty well. So
probably the best one we've gone through in many, many years.
Yeah. So I appreciate it, Representative Logie. Thank you. I'll give it back over to you, Vivica.
Okay, thank you, Ron. So I'm going to suggest that we may still have some legislative talk to do. People were chiming in, but I'm imagining there may be some other reports or questions. But let's take a quick break and then we'll come back. We'll pick that up, finish that up, and then move on to subcommittees. So let's see. Let's try to make it relatively short break. Let's be back here in 8 minutes. So 7:55. Thank you, guys.
You look pretty cozy there, Lori. Are you at the Copper King?
Yes, I am.
All right. We held our the State Wildlife Society meeting was there this time last year, and they just held the Wildlife Society meeting virtually this week to a lot of disappointed folks who sat on Zoom meetings for 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yeah, everybody's getting really. Okay, where am I at there? Yep, everybody's getting tired of Zoom meetings, and the last NACO convention we had was February of last year, so it's been kind of nice to get together and see everybody again and get caught up. So anyway.
Is Ron Gendro on?
He was in here with me. He's heading over right now, Ron. Heading to his office.
Hank, maybe you can answer. Is JD Douglas still working for the department?
I believe so.
Is he?
Ron will answer that. Ron's.
Yeah, he is.
Morning guy.
He's head of our special investigation unit.
Okay, I knew that, but I didn't know if I should say that out loud.
I remember when he was about 10 years old and a lost hunter up the alley, so I ran into him. Quite scared.
That's right. I remember when he first learned how to pack mules.
So Joe Jaquith.
Yes.
So is that a picture of is that your son in the background, the jarhead?
It is.
Outstanding. And daughter?
That's our son, And that's our daughter.
Outstanding. Cool.
Our son did 2 tours in Iraq, and our daughter has been deployed on the USS Dennis
Wow.
aircraft carrier.
Is he out now?
He's out, she's still in.
Okay. Yeah, my son did 10 years in. He did 4 tours, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan.
Good.
Thank
you for his service for us.
Yeah. Well, thank your kids for it too. I appreciate that.
If you're back and you don't have your camera on, if you can turn that on just so we know who all is here. Don't forget about your mute.
I lose good connection, so that's why I lose good connection. That's why I turn the video off so quite often.
No problem. I was just trying to get a sense of who we were waiting on here. I think we have most folks, so we'll just keep rolling so we can get through what's left on our agenda. So before we move on from the legislative piece of this, I think everybody was able to ask Ron the questions that they wanted to, but what I don't know is if, and I'm imagining we do have some unfinished business in terms of personal updates from personal experiences with this session, or Dinley may have some more to add. I don't know. So I'm just going to open the floor and see what else we have on the legislative piece of things.
Well, I will say we had a discussion tonight on we've had a lot of trapping and a lot of snare bills and a lot of things basically kind of geared more probably for Western Montana that isn't necessarily popular all over the state, but they made it through. And tonight we had in committee or late afternoon, we had a discussion on maybe trying to ease up some of the snaring to allow or take some concern for the bird hunters and their dogs. Those were kind of late in coming and they didn't have quite enough homework done on them. So they actually won't make it out of committee. But there are some concerns and maybe there may be some things that'll get toned down slightly over on the Senate side. But I know those are the trapping and the wolf situation is of course controversial around the state. But I think maybe the idea of when with commissioners from each region, maybe that'll, if that finally passes, that may take away some of the concerns that a lot of people have that maybe the West isn't quite represented with enough people. So that's a comment I'd have on what's been going on for sure.
Thank you. Others want to weigh in?
I just have a thought on them with the snares and the trapping. I think the trappers do a really good job with keeping an eye on their traps. With the snaring, I think there's so many variables there that they could get kind of lost. So at least around this country here, I think if you could maybe use the snares along with the trapping on the targeted wolves that you're after, like the ones we're having trouble with now, might be an option. I guess I'm not, being a landowner, I'm not sure that having snares throughout the ranch would be a good idea. That's just a thought that I have.
And of course, the snares on your property, you'd have the say on that anyway. But part of the discussion has been they have several types of snares, and one they call it it's kind of spring loaded, and they say nothing really will get out of that. And So that's a big concern for dog owners. But the trapping too, there's talk, you know, to try and extend that season a little bit more for the wolves too. But the discussions, like I said, they're headed over to the Senate now. Most of the discussion, most everything's gone through the House on the, or I should say, trapping and snaring bill.
Representative Logie, question for you on that. On that snaring, wasn't there some part of that to ensure that we had really good snaring education for snaring for wolves? Wasn't that in the bill, or is that something I heard outside of that?
You know, I can't tell you for sure. I know the discussion came up about the education, and I think there was a small component in there.
Okay, yeah, because I know one of the guys that we had talked to said if you trap wolves correctly, your chance of catching ungulates or other things are diminished quite a bit by how you set them up, and ungulates will go around this area if you set the snares correctly. I know that was a concern, but he was a professional snare and trapper for the feds. So,
and there was a discussion tonight also about trying to maybe flag the snares, but that didn't get enough traction tonight for the committee.
okay. It's funny, one of the things I learned from listening to these and talking to some of these trappers is when I bird hunt now, what I'm going to bring along with me is a pair of die cutters, a good wire cutter to have with you just in case. I never even thought about that until I talked to a couple of people, and you see bird dogs getting into snares and doing different things and you're unprepared for it. So,
and that did come up in the discussion tonight, and that might be a good thing actually to talk about it as far as maybe get the word out from even the regions to say, you know, it's not a bad idea to carry some kind of a dike so you can cut those snares if your dog's happen to get into it. It'll might save the dog, and I know there's the negative part. Well, we shouldn't even have to do that, but you will have to probably, and so that would be a good way to prepare.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in on that, in that I'm an avid bird hunter, and you know, I have dogs obviously because I'm a bird hunter, and I'm an avid backcountry recreationist as well, year round, and my dogs go with me everywhere. And you know, talking about carrying the pliers, you know, God bless Footloose Montana, because not that I support everything they say or do, but they sell these pliers that don't have the sharp points, and so it makes it super easy to if your dog does get snared, and you can save their life with these pliers. And I carry them with me year round at all times and on my body because I don't want to lose my dog to a trap. And you know, as a person who grew up hunting, you know, from a young girl, you know, the thing that always comes back to me is fair chase. And I just don't see where the snares are fair chase. It's more population control. It's not a fair chase scenario. And I don't know that I can support the snare legislation ever.
And that is part of the argument, or part of these bills coming through, is that the idea is more for the management than it is the fair chase. It's in certain areas that management might be needed more than others. The management's taking care of itself, but that is part of the idea of having the snares or the more aggressive trapping. It is more.
She is exactly right about the pliers to have, though. The regular fencing pliers will not work on a snare. So you need to have a good sharp set of dikes or a pair of pliers like she's talking about.
yes, ma'am, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I'm going to get a set from there then. So Footloose sells them?
Yeah, you know, they do their whole training thing on, you know, how to get your dog out of a snare. And one of the things they do at each of those training sessions is they sell the pliers that they have a blunt nose on them, and they're very sharp and very quick. Now, it works fine for my lab because he's 2 feet away from me now. My pointer, probably not gonna make it.
Hey, Denley, in testimony for this bill, as prevalence of or how many animals have actually been inadvertently caught in snares, maybe in Idaho or Alaska, has that come up at all?
It has come up, and I know we got a pamphlet and it talked about, well, that it was an opponent to the trapping and the snares, but in the snare conversation, he gave us some information and said that was about snares, but as you read the article, it was trapping results, and trapping brings in a lot of other different animals, but that was brought up into discussion. The snares really didn't have the data for how many untargeted animals came in, and maybe Hank and Ron might have some information on that.
I don't, unfortunately, I don't have anything. Ron, do you have anything on it?
I'm looking as we speak.
I know the information that we saw that they had come from Idaho, but it was, like I say, more on the trapping end of it, even though they said it was the snaring, but once you read the article, it said trapping.
I do, let's see.
I guess I just bring it up to ask a question of, certainly I wouldn't want any of my dogs because I bird hunt also, but I also, would like to see wolves managed a little bit more. So what kind of prevalence rate are we really talking about versus the management of a population that continues to grow?
I'm looking at I have a summary here of, it's from 2012 to 2017. And it doesn't really talk about snares, but it's summary of incidental trapping incidents from FWP records by species and fate. So in 2017, we had, these are incidental trapping incidents. So these are species not targeted. In 17, there were 18. Looks like there were 18 that died and 17 were released. And it's everything from beaver to bobcat, deer, fisher, 2 wolves, 1 heron, 4 mountain lion, 1 swift fox, and that's statewide. And then 1 black bear was released, 1 deer was released, 12 domestic dogs were released, 2 mountain lions, 1 raptor. So that was in 2017. It's about that same consistent, about that same kind of number year after, looks like.
So I'm going to try to move us forward just so we don't lose the time with our subcommittee discussion, but I do want to pause just one more time and make sure we don't have any other legislative business hanging out there before we move on.
Yeah, I got one quick one. House Bill 241, which was allowing hunting by non-tribal persons on fee lands on the reservation. What's the status of that?
That bill was tabled in committee.
Okay, thank you.
I will say it did prompt some conversations, and I think there may be some of the reservations that will be doing some talking with some of the non-tribal members, landowners, and I think there'll be maybe some seasons and some management that will come out of it.
Yeah, so we were in opposition to that bill. And actually, after that bill, since a lot of the tribal leaders were there, the Blackfeet wanted to come over and meet with us, which was actually pretty good. So that came out of that bill. So, but it is tabled.
All right, well, I just want to say thanks again. Thanks to Ron for leading us through all that. That was a lot to run through. So thank you. And thanks to everybody for weighing in and for all the follow-ups. We spent a lot of time here, but I think that speaks to where we're at in the session and the interest. So thanks. And obviously, you know where to reach out. And you can always, as a starting point, reach out to me and I can funnel you to the right person if you've got questions on anything legislative wise moving forward. That's probably what I will do is forward it on, but I can be the starting point if that's helpful to you. Okay, I'm gonna move us to our subcommittee discussion, and we have a couple items on there that have come up since our last meeting as possibilities for us to tackle some work that we could do, that we could form some groups on. And the first of those I'm going to let Mike introduce.
Is that the trapping, Vivica? I don't have it in front of me.
It is, yes. Yeah, well, we
Okay.
segued right into that from our legislative discussion, didn't we?
Well, I was thinking that was kind of fortuitous. So it was, we can knit together the topic of trapping and subcommittees. So you remember, maybe you don't, but we had some conversation about this just kind of as an update. So it was kind of a hit and miss, quick and dirty little conversation about this at CAC a meeting or two ago. In fact, we touched on it at a couple meetings. And Mark Cook asked a question about it. And at that time, with him pressing the question just a little bit, it made me reply to him that maybe that's a subcommittee task. And we reflected on that a little bit more. And I checked with District 2 of the Montana Trappers Association, the board, and we talked about that a little bit, if they'd be willing to participate. And so what this would be about, and what I'm asking you if you're interested in participating, is to follow up on the commission conversation that occurred throughout pretty much last year, last calendar year, about trapping and where we trap. So especially with this legislation and with the focus on trapping, it becomes kind of more important now as we think about managing trapping and where we trap in relation to trails, what trap setbacks look like. Places like we have in Region 2, like at Blue Mountain Recreation Area, like at Rattlesnake, the lower portion of the Rattlesnake Recreation Area, so forth, Bass Creek, we have no trapping zones. And the idea of these no trapping areas is to codify common sense for the benefit not only of recreationists who should expect to not encounter traps and not have to worry about it, but also for trappers to not make a mistake and set traps in places that are just obviously going to get a lot of public traffic. We will help them make smart decisions for the benefit of trappers and the trapping community at large, if they want to keep trapping on the landscape, and also for those recreationists. I think all of us, when we're in the mountains or when we're recreating around town or wherever we are, the disadvantage that we're at is that the trapper knows where their traps are, but the people who follow behind them do not know where their traps are. And so vigilance is good. Being used to the idea that there may be traps out there is good. However, being nervous about a trap at every step of your recreation is probably a situation that we can alleviate with communication and information, and with maybe some clearer expectations about where traps would be encountered and where traps will not be encountered as long as everybody is operating legally. That's the conversation that the commission wanted to carry forward, and they did ask for comment on it last year, and we got some comments, and we got some good suggestions from, in particular, the Montana Backcountry Alliance. Derek Goldman was the representative that brought that information forward. One of the suggested closures that MBA brought forward was something broader to encompass the Missoula Valley. We discussed that just off the cuff a little bit with the MTA board members, and they said, you know, we'd be interested in discussing that. Doing these things that are good for everybody, that are no-brainers, we call them no-brainers, for trappers and for recreationists, benefits everybody. And so they were interested in talking about that. And so if we could come to some consensus rather than draft something up in a vacuum, maybe we could pull something together here that would be pretty constructive. And there are other possibilities around the region. When we were talking about this, brainstorming a little bit, a meeting or two ago, I remember Denley bringing up that we want landowner representation. Tracy just brought that up, that landowners are going to have considerations about what we do and don't do, and the non-trapping public, the anti-trapping public for that matter. But we want to have a constructive deep dive work group where we work on solutions. So I wondered if there's interest among the CAC, kind of like we did with hunting seasons, the last season setting, if there's interest on the part of individual CAC members to work on this topic with a few trappers. And I know Mark Cook will want to do it, and he'll have some people in mind, a handful of folks that will want to participate, that are interested in not having traps in places where they don't want to have traps. But I wonder if CAC members are interested in this. I'll finally be quiet and see if anybody can answer my question. Are you interested in participating in a subcommittee with a few extra meetings outside of the regular schedule to work on this?
And Mike, could you just kind of recap what we're teeing up to do and what the timeline for that is, just to give people a sense?
Yes. So what we're attempting to do is to develop some kind of common vision about where we would have get a lot of benefit from for some additional no trapping areas around populated and popular recreation areas. Also visit some setback adjustments, either larger or smaller, depending on the area we're talking about. If you talk about some of the outlying portions of Region 2, maybe there would be places where setbacks would be relaxed, where we're not attracting a lot of recreation, people cross-country skiing and that sort of thing. So being pretty open-minded about, okay, what are some pretty specific opportunities out there that make sense for all parties? And then what we've been asked to do, what Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has been asked to do by the previous commission, I think I have to add the modifier, the previous commission, was to by June come up with a proposal that we would float to the general public. So us meeting as a focus group is just helping us work through issues and have the more the more detailed conversations in depth so that we gain some understanding and some depth of each other's knowledge and awareness so that we can come up with a well thought out proposal. But then we don't get to make the decision. The general public will weigh in, and there may or may not be changes to what we recommend, and the commission would rule on that. If they go on a regular schedule, it would be in August that they would rule on that and maybe enact it. One of the things that came up when I had conversations with the MTA folks was that they said, don't be in a big hurry about the outcomes, because conversations and getting people on board and thinking about some of these bigger issues will take some time, and will take smaller bites would be their preference, not try to fix the whole world all in one fell swoop, but do this, take good solid steps in the right direction, whatever we determine that to be. It's a group effort. If you've served on these subcommittees before, it's driven primarily by you folks. I talk a lot, but I'm not, I'm trying only to provide information that you guys can debate talking with each other. I think that's the big benefit that we get out of these subcommittees, is that you folks bring a lot to the table. That's what we look for in your applications. That's what we get in practice and in experience. And so if we knew all the answers, why would we torture you with this participation? But the fact is, we do not know all the answers. So best thing we could do would be to take a step backwards and let you guys talk with each other a little bit, and let us hear and pick out the gems that we can pick out of that conversation. So that's the way it would go. Some of us would try to facilitate that. If we want to bring in some additional expertise, we can do that.
Mike, Louis,
Well, Mike, that was one of the.
Do you visualize these being evening meetings or daytime meetings?
Whatever works for you guys. I would imagine evening, but I don't know.
Thank you. I put my name on the list.
All right.
Mike, it's interesting that you're bringing that up tonight too, because that was our big discussion in our committee meeting this afternoon and evening, was try to work out some of these issues between the bird hunters, the dog walkers, the skiers, and try to get areas that kind of have someplace they feel like they can play. And one of the things that came out of it tonight was DNRC was online as informational witness, and they actually have their lands when you put in for like a trapping permit, they have to approve of that trapping on their state land. And so there are some areas that they actually exclude trapping, and they actually, you can go online and you can find out what those areas are. And there's another piece of public information that those that are worried about their dogs can find out, okay, there is some state land they can go on, and they don't have to worry at all about traps or snares. And I think that's part of it. Everybody, you know, it's like everything else. Everybody needs a little piece of the pie, and to try and work out the details, it's going to take everybody to get together and give up something, but everybody gains if they do.
Are you in your spare time?
Yes, I'll be done here. We're sitting right around 40 days, so I'll be done soon. May.
I'll mark you down. If we're late for June, I'll blame you.
Mike,
Yeah,
I'd like to be on that too. This is Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also like to be on that as well.
Okay.
Kylie Paul's in as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike, I would also like to be on there. Tracy Manley.
Okay. I heard a yup reverberate. Was that just me and the having an echo, or was that somebody I didn't identify?
That was Louis.
Oh, okay, okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, do you want to read your list to make sure we've captured everybody, didn't miss somebody?
So I've got Louis, Denley, Bill, Susan, Kylie, and Tracy.
You could throw my name on there too, Mike, Greg.
There you go. Good.
Go right down Robin.
Well, maybe it might be refreshing to have Robin.
But I will say another thing that comes up in the discussions when you're talking with the trappers are uncontrolled dogs. I know everybody has dogs and they like to go out in the wild, and that also comes up even with me on private landowner. You don't mind dogs that come around that are under control, but you don't like the dogs that are just out there free running. And a lot of people think, well, it's the wild woods and that's fine. You want to take the dogs out to exercise, but I think, there's a responsibility there too as a dog owner, and that's they're the bad trappers that set their traps too close to the trailhead and don't do that right, but they're the dog owners too, and that's where probably as much of the conflict comes is between the two bad actors.
Yep, good point.
Mike, this can of worms that you just opened up is huge, but you can throw my name in on that.
You like a good can of worms, don't you?
Well, kind of.
I gotta say one thing. I gotta say one thing. I really appreciate you people stepping forward to do things like this. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Hank. We all do. And I think that, well, I'm echoing, so I'll stop.
You might be okay now, Mike, if you.
Well, I was just going to say then that one of the huge benefits of having these difficult conversations with you folks is that you are collaborative and you all have experience, so I know you don't take that for granted. I mean, it's a big deal to be able to have the kinds of conversations that we have and respect each other and be collaborative. And what your participation does, besides your own personal views and your inputs, it sets a tone for other people that we will add to the committee who are not very comfortable talking to each other. But with you guys in the room and with the tone that we set collaboratively, we're going to have conversations that you can't have any other way. We'll have some sideboards and we'll talk quite civilly, and if experience is any teacher, it will go really well. So thank you. We'll get some information out.
Yeah, we'll figure out some options. Joe, I think it might be your speaker, if you don't mind muting. Thank you. We'll figure out some
I'm actually going to
options.
say something, but that's okay.
Oh, go for it.
I was just going to tell Mike I'll plan on sitting in on that too, from a law enforcement standpoint.
Oops, now I'm on. Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
And,
All right.
and no, Mike, I've got one other legislator I think that would be interested for sure, but I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Sounds good.
And Mike may have said this and I might have missed it, but the ask was, statewide. So there are going to be other folks in one form or fashion looking at this same thing on the same timeline we are across the state. So we're doing the work for this region, but others are looking at it elsewhere too. So it's a holistic piece that goes to the commission in June. So we'll be in touch rather quickly because there's not a lot of time, although it feels like it at this moment, there's really not between now and June. So we'll be working on a pretty quick timeline on this one. All right, anything else on that before we move to our next topic? All right, well, the other item that is a potential for a subcommittee is a topic that Leah brought up, and I think if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, she brought this up after our last meeting. So I don't think we've talked about it as a group. It was a note that she sent to us and we tossed around at the office and said, yeah, bring it to the CAC and see what their thoughts are. So if you don't mind, Leah, do you want to introduce your thoughts there?
Yeah, I totally will. Again, Vivica and Mike, if you guys want to jump in at any point, feel free to. And I'll do my best pitching this and putting a little context in. I'll say kind of like how it came up to being on the forefront of my mind. I finished out this season working for a timber strike team with the U.S. Forest Service. Timber strike team is the group of people that go back or go in the logging areas, those logging areas, and at the GPS tracks, and then for boundaries and roads, infrastructure for the logging operation, and then eventually go in and mark the leave trees as well. So it's really fascinating getting to do that for the end of this last year. But I spent so much time in the woods wandering around by myself with just a GPS unit. And one of the units I was working on, we found out litigation was filed against it while we were mid-mapping. And we all were thinking, gosh, this is a lot of work we're putting in for something that might not even be able to happen. And that area was in 9 Mile. That was the Soldier Butler area. So that's a little bit of background for how I came up on the topic of land management and grizzly bears in Region 2. I wrote an outline, so I'm going to try to go by my bullet points there. So I think that this topic, and huge can of worms, but I think it's going to be familiar to a lot of us because of knowledge we have or connections we personally have with a couple different groups, the timber industry, and how when well managed subsequently leads to local jobs, danger for extreme wildfire behavior in areas of heavy fuel loading, which a lot of these units are pretty heavy, ecosystem benefits of a positive predator-prey balance, which we all are very familiar with wolves, and then a little bit, maybe less so with mountain lions, but we all know the benefits of having a good balance there. Ability to manage a resource when regulated at the state level rather than the national level. So having a little bit more say and a little bit more influence based on what's actually happening in the area. Solving human wildlife conflicts with a big picture view, and then unintended consequences of well-intended resource management. Something I've seen a lot out of regulation being created in a vacuum, kind of like what Mike was talking about of like, we don't want to solve problems in a vacuum, miss out on some good perspectives. So why now? Why bring up this topic now? Well, litigation was filed by the Alliance for the Wild Rockies in October, end of October last year. And I have a feeling this might become a more common trend as grizzly bears start to pop up a little bit more in Western Montana and a little bit closer to population centers, Missoula, probably also in Kalispell as well. And there's also been the really large shift in state demographics. And there's a lot of people coming into Montana. They're from other areas that might not have grizzly bears. So it's an unfamiliar topic for a lot of voters or voices in the community. And so getting ahead of that would be good. Then fire seasons combined with Douglas fir mortality from tussock moss. If you've been in 9 Mile recently, you might be familiar with that influencing fuel loading and fire hazard. And then the grizzly bear populations improving regionally, prompting more human-bear interactions. And another little piece to this, the day that that litigation was filed, my friend actually rescued from Butler Creek from a grizzly bear that ate all the chickens' buddies. And so it was quite ironic to me that this, you know, a whole lot of effort and money and court time was getting poured into a logging unit, which in my, you know, my humble personal opinion needed to happen. While that was going on, all this money and time and effort wasn't being spent on the bear that was eating chickens in people's backyards. And I felt like this effort could be redirected a little bit better. So those are kind of my reasons and like big picture context for realizing that this might be worth doing a subcommittee on and might be worth bringing other people into the conversation. So I see the goal as to promote a healthy ecosystem for grizzly bears while maintaining a healthy and productive ecosystem for all. So in my mind, it's not really worth only focusing on one species like grizzlies if you're going to throw out the health of something else. For example, the forest structure, you know, old growth forest being choked out by a lot of really thick timber or dead and down. Let's see, I'll kind of skip through that. And then also identify vested parties, such as 9 Mile residents, local timber industry potential, forest and wildlife managers, elected officials, outdoor industry and nonprofits, informed citizens, and community leaders. And then find the conflicts or agreements between those groups and see where the future of grizzly management, future discussions of grizzly management might focus on, and how we might come up with solutions before they're big problems. Yeah, and my big one is, I wrote on the very end of my outline, prevent loving it to death. And it's a phrase that has stuck in my mind ever since childhood. I was born and raised in Western Washington, in the San Juan Islands, and there's orca whales out there. And the big story with that is orca whales were loved to death. At a certain point, everyone wanted to put one in an aquarium. And so all the calves would be taken to go somewhere else. And that was a big start of the population decline, was just that it was a charismatic animal that everyone wanted to see. And I feel like grizzly bears are a very similar charismatic animal that's misunderstood in what they mean to local area or the biology behind them. And as Western Montana becomes more populated for humans, particularly from other areas, we might be seeing this become a bigger and more misunderstood issue soon. So yeah, that's kind of my pitch on it. And we're so good at talking about predators like wolves. I figured we'd be a great group of people to start this.
Leah, let me say, you need to come up to Mineral County to Superior the first Tuesday of every month to the Mineral County Collaborative, because that's exactly, it's the topics of the forest management and the wildlife interaction, and grizzly bears come into it because of the need of leaving out some of the roads on all the timber sales, and that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, and that's when I was all of a sudden doing that for work and letting, or my work was laying the outline for other jobs that could exist in this area. I realized that the views of citizens in somewhere like Missoula could affect the ability to have jobs in Mineral County, and when really it's just an issue of understanding what the wildlife population needs and focusing on that, rather than just saying, well, you can't put a road here, it would damage the ability for grizzlies to reproduce. Well, the grizzlies are reproducing and they're eating chickens in Butler Creek. So yeah, I don't know. That's just my...
Well,
let me speak for a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been working with grizzly bears before I moved to the 9 Mile, and I've lived here for 12 years. And since here, the 9 Mile Wildlife Work Group has been working with all their local citizens through communication with meetings, emails, newsletters, phone trees, teaching people how to work safely in bear country. And really, it sounds like this is kind of an anti-litigation committee rather than a grizzly bear promotion committee. And I'm not sure which one it really is. I think grizzlies have a place in the environment, but people have to learn to live with them. And if you want to promote grizzly bears, you need connectivity. You do need to close roads. You do need some types of forest management that provide security cover. And there is a balance there. And I think there is a process that we have. And I'm not clear on what this committee would be. So like I say, it sounds like it's more of an anti-litigation.
Right. And let me apologize, Pat, for it coming off that way. That's not really how I imagine it being. Of course, you're going to have your pro-litigation side and your anti-litigation side, just like you would have a pro-logging side and an anti-logging side. My concern on it is how we're going to continue to see these conflicts between grizzlies and humans as we have more grizzlies and as we have more humans. And I foresee those becoming the sources of effort, I guess you could say, in trying to aid figuring out how to have this relationship with a charismatic predator. And I imagine the subcommittee being a little bit more proactive in how do we anticipate the developing needs for grizzly bears and for people in the area. Does that help answer that?
Well, we already have process that's in play. That's why we have litigation. People like Jamie Jonkel does a lot to try to educate people, and there's a lot of things that are going on. But I totally agree that we need to learn how to live with the wildlife around here. And grizzly bears are definitely something that gets a lot of people, I don't know, it's a red button for a lot of folks. But you can work with grizzlies if you do it right. And, you know, up in Silly Lake, they have the Blackfoot Challenge is a good example of how they do it. And I think we have a pretty good example here in 9 Mile where we don't have very much in the way of conflict. That chicken, you can manage chickens with electric fences. And that's what really needs to be done if you're going to be living in bear country. You have to have electric fences around your apiaries and around your chickens. And you need to have bear resistant garbage containers. We put over 108 garbage containers out here that are bear resistant to help reduce that attractant. And there's a lot of things to do. And I would like to help make that happen, but that's what I've been doing. Like I say, since I moved here, that's kind of my day job, is trying to reduce conflicts and promote wildlife safety. So
I'd like to chime in. I'd like to chime in on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go first, Mike. Go ahead.
Well, I think, and Greg, maybe you'll dovetail on this, maybe not, I'm not sure. We're kind of having the subcommittee meeting now, for one thing, and which is fine, except we don't have a lot of time. And I think that what we have stumbled into here is our mechanisms and our groups that are long established, that are working in particular areas with particular constituencies, doing particular work. And I think there's an opportunity here, as I hear what Leah brought up, there's an opportunity to knit that together and advance those efforts a little bit more and to put them into a broader bit of application. And if I might ask and offer permission for this aspect of fish, wildlife, and parks management to kind of be in, to get an ear toward trying to knit these things together a little bit for our benefit in management. As you most of you know, the department's embarking on a grizzly bear management plan for the state of Montana, which has that very challenge in front of it, which is to knit the day-to-day realities of different communities and different constituencies together into something that works for Montana more broadly. Because the bear is, as Leah says, the bear is distributing itself more broadly. And it's bumping into lots of people that are not used to it. And we're trying to do all these things now, more so than ever before. We're trying to do more things with the same acres, trying to produce more things out of only a fixed number of acres, a reduced number of acres, because there's more of us living here. And so I think I'm kind of biting on Leah's offer, because I think we could use your guys' help in a conversation about this. I think the land management issue as it interfaces with grizzly bear is boy, that's advanced to a level that no matter what group you're in, you've never seen it like this before, and where we're headed, we've never seen before in terms of climate, in terms of development, in terms of people coming to the area, in terms of what we need from our forests, and what grizzly bears are going to require of society, and what there is to value from grizzly bears. So I think this is a big topic. I think it's a valuable topic. I would hope that be interested in talking about it.
Yeah, I would dovetail with that a little bit, just with the, we had the Grizzly Bear Council last year, and obviously their efforts are being put to use in that grizzly bear plan that's coming up. 20 years ago, I spent 5 years in the 9 Mile doing DNA hair trapping. I worked with Jamie's father, Chuck Jonkel, for many, many years doing education all over that area. And the reason that's such a hot button area is because it's a key connective area from both the Cabinet Yak area as well as the Mission area. So it was identified, it's been known as a linkage zone for the last 20, 30 years, probably, when linkage zones first started being talked about. And it's actually one of the most important linkage zones, thus the litigation. And I would also just back up what Pat said too. There's lots of science already that talks about why road closures are necessary. And it's not just for reproduction, it's because that's where grizzly bears get killed. But I do think there is a place for further conversation. It would just be, I think we need to carefully think about it so that we're not being redundant or stepping on other groups. It seems like it would be almost more of a group that you would collaborate with conversations that are already happening. Because I think those conversations have been happening. Pat mentioned Jamie. Jamie goes to all kinds of communities and gets into these conversations. And I think the 9 Mile would be a place to connect to. And education wise is what I heard, really, that there's going to be a need for education when you're talking about new people coming and not being familiar with being around bears and such. But yeah, I would agree with Mike that there's room for that, but I think we need to be careful about how we do it and making sure that we connect with the right other people who are already having these conversations and have been for, again, 20, 30 years. I was doing that work in the late 1990s, early 2000s. I talked with lots of residents up there. I had an LA Times reporter tagging around with me. I mean, there was all kinds of publication around it. And so it's not a new topic, that's for sure, but it's one that we could further.
It's perfectly stated, no debate. It's not a new topic, but it's a new day for the old topic. What the experience that we have here is that we have people coming to a topic, lots of people coming to a topic that relatively few Montanans have been having amongst themselves. Relatively few as a percentage of the public. And I think that this is good practice for us to begin to think about, okay, how is this going to work in the future? Have you guys been tracking wildfire adapted Missoula? Been tracking the Forest Service effort to help mitigate against the severe wildfires that we're experiencing, the extreme conditions that not only have we experienced, but we're going to, by all indications, going to continue experiencing in the future. It would be nice if Missoula didn't burn up, to be extreme about it and just to make a point. And when I say that we're trying to do the same things, we're trying to do more things on the same number of acres. We're trying to build a resilient forest, anticipating climate change and the people who have already come as COVID refugees and will continue to come as climate refugees to Missoula. So we're building that place at the same time. And oh, by the way, what we've been doing for grizzly bears is going to go on unchanged. That's not true. It's not going to go on unchanged. We're going to all have to adapt in the way we look at what the bear needs and how we provide for that, at the same time trying to deal with a situation environmentally that is different than we've ever seen. I think it's a big deal. I think it's an advancement.
If I could chime in, I think if this is indeed a subcommittee that's launched, it does need to be pretty darn careful, I would think, in terms of its initiation and at least just not careful per se, but quite strategic to ensure it's not just repeating some of the same stuff or entirely confusing the public as it relates to all the different meetings and plans and directions that have been undertaken or that are currently underway. And I also think I think it would be smart to not tie it to the Soldier Butler project, because that's it's litigation, it's focused on the Forest Service, it's focused on NEPA. It has specific components to it that is unique compared to some other issues related to what I think you're trying to tackle here. So, I mean, it can be a piece of the discussion, but I wouldn't really, in my opinion, make it the reason to have it, because it could get real messy real quick, I think.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that's where the thought of maybe needing a subcommittee at some point on this came out of my experience on the Soldier Butler, but that doesn't mean that I think it should be there, because then I started piecing it together of this, as Mike was saying, this issue is evolving into a much bigger, more dynamic issue than it has been before, with a different set of challenges. So thank you for bringing that up.
And that's kind of back to the point of what I said too, like Mineral County has the resource group. Pat Sweety's wife was really responsible for starting getting the community together and get involved and have the meetings. Well, the Grizzly Bear has entered into those discussions because of the trails and the roads and the impact that they have on the Grizzly Bear and the adaptation of even the logging and timber management that you have to make around the Grizzly Bear. So as Kylie said too, Soldier Butler might not be the focus. We've actually commented some on Soldier Butler and Frenchtown Face and some of those timber sales as a local group, but the concern over the Grizzly Bear management is, of course, that's statewide, and we're going to see some big changes. It's not a bad thing to talk about, but there are some other groups that are trying to deal with it in the timber industry and in the subdivisions and the adaptations we'll have to make in Western Montana.
So can we be privy to that? Can those things be brought together so that we have a conversation that informs us more broadly?
Well, that's where I think it does come in. The Forest Service already, there's a lot of things in any timber sale that comes up, and now we have a big landscape project up out of St. Regis. But those discussions do come up, and they are being brought up. And there's a little different, we're out in the rural community, but I think maybe the Missoula urban community needs to be made aware of some of those discussions and some of those impacts. So it's not a bad thing for an education and information process and the adaptations that do have to be made or are being made.
I'm going to be, I appreciate that. And believe me, I'm going to test, I'm here testing my goodwill, your reception of my goodwill, because I intend goodwill here. I'm going to say something blunt and risk being wrong, because I think we trust each other, and I'm coming from a good, respectful place. And what I sense is, and I guess that's okay, what I sense is, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that we have camps with strategic lances in the ground, and we don't want to mix that up because we've got a strategy already in place, and it may be, there's kind of a detente going on, and in this corner, somebody's working in this direction. In this corner, somebody's working in this direction. In this corner there. And if we start messing around, then we're gonna end up screwing up our chance in our particular group to accomplish the particular thing we're there to do. And that's what I'm hearing. Am I wrong? And correct?
I hope I'm not sending you that message. I'm saying there are some groups, and I think the collaborative process of all the groups getting together and sharing information and working together is what I'm saying is the important part. It's not striking out on your own and being your own little island. I think it's to try and bring the information all together and make everybody understand what we're trying to accomplish in each, as you say, each camp staked out area. That's, to me, I see nothing wrong with working together. Leah may not know some of those groups maybe exist in a smaller scale, and I think it is great to work together. That's the way you get things done.
How about others? Did I misunderstand others? I misunderstood Denley.
I think it's fine. It's great to do it, but just be clear on how this conversation differs or is unique or helps or improves on the discussion points, not just another group, because then everyone's like, oh my God, we're already doing this. Like, why is this group different? So if that's clear, great. But if it's not clear, it could just be just another bit, just kind of muddied up in there.
Yep, good.
Could I ask one question? Could I ask you just one question as a very new CAC member? So a subcommittee is just a smaller group within the CAC, like 5 or 6 people that get together outside of our normal CAC meetings and talk and try to discuss these issues further in depth with you guys that represent Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. This isn't a public facing group necessarily, or a group that's going out and interacting, right? Is this just, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding what a subcommittee within the CAC is, and if that could be defined, that would help me better understand that.
Well, you described it accurately to my thoughts, Matt. How we've done it before is that really nobody else on earth would know that there's a subcommittee to the CAC until such time as we kind of got together and had something we wanted to promote, and then we might take credit for it, but it may, most of the time, you know, oftentimes nothing comes out of it besides better understanding.
I guess I would add just for clarification, Matt, having had a couple subcommittees in the past operate a little differently. We had a subcommittee meeting around big game season setting last time, and we made some focused invites to other groups who we knew would want to be a part of that process, and invited them as well. And I would imagine that subcommittee on the trapping conversation that Mike's already identified tonight will do something similar. But I think in those, it's clear up front as we're meeting with what does the subcommittee want to do? What is it beneficial to you to invite some other folks, or maybe some information from an outside source?
So we've got Kylie and Denley and Lori and Pat and Greg, right? No? No? So we don't have anybody? Well, that's fair. That's okay.
No, I would be in on that, but just like you said, to figure out, you know, if it's something that's even needed is probably the first discussion to have.
Well, it is the first discussion to have. I will say that I need it, and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks needs it. I will say that. But
If you need it, I'll be there.
all right.
I'm already on one, man.
I'm going to throw in a comment too. You know, conversation is never a bad thing. And when it starts at the most local and basic level as the CAC committee in Region 2, you know, that's where outside the box ideas are born. And that's where things really happen. So I think I applaud Leah for bringing this forward, and you know, just because other groups are talking about it in the state in a bigger picture doesn't mean that we can't have that conversation also and brainstorm around those issues with those that have experience doing this and that, and those that are like myself new to the conversation. I think it's a worthwhile subcommittee to have, and I'd be behind that conversation regarding wildfire risk and how it relates to habitat in general. I think that's important. So I'm behind that. You can sign me up.
So who do we, so we've got Matt and we've got Leah and we've got Denley. Who do we have?
I'll be on it too, Mike.
Okay. Lori?
Greg?
Greg? Do we have both Matts or one Matt?
I'm gonna sit this one out.
Okay.
I'm in the Grizzly, the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem Grizzly Club. That is, I usually almost get eaten by one every year.
Well, they're grumpier. Those are grumpier than ours are. Anybody else?
If you can, I mean, as maybe
Yeah,
you all
you can
can,
put-
sorry, if you can share stuff around, like as these meetings progress, maybe we all can kind of jump in if we're like, oh, yeah, that's what we wanted, or.
Yeah, Kylie, I was just going to add that typically what we've done is just that. We've shared notes and information on when the gatherings are going to happen, and it's not a now or never. You know, you can join in or leave, I suppose, at any point. The door is open. So we'll do that with both of these groups. Is everybody here will get copied on the happenings, and if any point you want to jump in, you know, we can do that. Plus, as these groups get their legs under them, sometimes or most times you get a better vision of what actually is going to happen and what the format's going to be and how it's going to work, which might help you decide, oh yeah, that is something I'm interested in or not. So we'll do that.
Well, and you build it. I mean, it's you build it. It's not something that's built. It's you build it. I have some inputs. Leah's got some inputs. We've got some inputs, but we build it. Pat, I see.
You can put me in
your
there
mic
too,
on.
Mike.
Okay, thank you.
I keep trying to talk, but I can't, so.
That's because I'm always talking. I'm talking on top of you. All right, I'm going to take a rest, Vivica.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Leah, for bringing that up. I probably embarrassed you with how hard I was pushing.
Don't worry. It's kind of tough to embarrass me. And, you know, if I am the joke of everyone's night, that's fine too.
So
I think I did. I wear that crown. Don't worry about that.
So I know that we're past time and I just want to acknowledge that. But I don't want to go before asking, are there other items either under this topic of topics we want to consider for subcommittees at some point, even if we don't hash through it at all tonight, just to kind of put on the list? Or are there any other items of business we don't want to miss before we close?
Right.
Vivica, I just wanted to show you, let you meet the chairman of the House Fish and Game Committee. He conducts
Mr. Chairman, how you doing?
Thank you, Dinley. I think you, are you still there?
Yes.
Now that the video's off, well, thank you.
There he is again.
What else do we not want to miss?
Hey, I was wondering what the process this year was going to be for the for new CSA or CAC members.
CSA, I see why your head is there.
I'm thinking of my own farm coming up here.
Yes.
CAC.
For recruitment of new members, is that what you're?
Yeah, well, because my term is up this year too. So.
Oh, so it's very relevant.
To me.
So what we'll be doing, we haven't talked about it, but it'll be the typical process, I would imagine. So that comes around in June, and we will look at our list of folks that have expiring terms. And as always, you can reapply if you're interested. We'll throw that open. And then as those applications come in, it's a combo review process between our Region 2 managers, and then you guys as members get a chance to look at the applications. If you're new, you haven't been through this before, and weigh in. We have a conversation, and those recommendations go to the director's office for final look. But yeah, so we'll be doing that again, Greg, and that'll come around in June, and we'll probably have a meeting before that so we can talk about it again, but I'll send that info out to everybody.
Vivica, one thing I'll add to that is we are going to look at all the charters for all the CACs, and Mike Valesky's working on that right now to kind of uniform them. And we're also going to look to try to kind of have the same makeup of different backgrounds from people in the CAC. So they may expand a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
What else have we missed? Everett.
I was wondering if maybe next time we might be able to get an update on that special 270 3-point mule deer tag, and if it achieved results that we were looking for, if we might expand that as well to like that Libby Trophy area. So that's something I have just maybe an update on. And then while we've got the director, maybe I can put this bug in as well. We've talked a little bit about the new database or the new internet website that's coming in, the digital tags, and if there's anything more than just the stopgap with the paper printed tags, and will we see some resolution maybe in 22 to that. So that's just, I know that's on a lot of hunters' minds as well.
Yeah, well, we're just going ahead with the build for it. I'm still working out the RFP with the governor's office. I was just responding to a meeting to have a Monday morning at 9 o'clock. To go through this so we can get the system being built. But as you're probably well aware, the paper is a stopgap on it. And I'm going to talk to enforcement next week to find out what all the issues they collected with the problems with what they were. I hear a lot of things people say there's an issue, but I really want to find out what the issues were. The other thing is, as I think it's been explained to people, our goal is to try to get this so we can do it electronically as well. And that may come with a reporting requirement for harvest information, stuff like that. So a lot of other states that have this electronic capability have a registration, if you will, part of it too. So you harvest something, you then at that point register it. So that's what you have to have in order to keep the animal in your freezer. So it kind of validates, the tag is validated at that point as well, once you register it. So there's some things that we're going to be working on that'll make it a lot better, but hopefully we can get this done a lot sooner than later. We're just waiting for the go ahead. So the COVID has put us, obviously like everything else, put us at least a year behind on this thing. Does that answer your question, sir? I think you froze up, huh?
Yeah, did we lose you, Everett? Oh, he's back.
He's on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. Zoom froze on me. I'm back now.
Yeah. Did you hear what I said or not? Or
no, I heard most of it, and I love the idea of mandatory harvest reporting. I've talked a lot about that, and as we move digitally, I just see it as a seamless transition. I know we're having a headache with paper stuff, and I know it's a stopgap. I would love to see that on time. Let's say it that way in 22, if possible.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're shooting for. I mean, I'm going to explain to the governor that this is our heart and soul. This system is our heart and soul of the agency. It does more than just licensing, and I want to make sure that he understands that, because he's a hunter fisherman himself. He does probably more days than anybody I know out in the field. But so we do want to do this, and it's funny. This idea kind of came quite a few years ago from Wisconsin. You know, they have 9 days of hunting season for deer hunting there, and they have 600,000 hunters in 9 days. And they went to a system somewhat like this, and they've always had mandatory reporting or registration in your game. So we're just looking for other states and try to make it so we can help with more information for commissioners and everything to make more informed decisions on where wildlife numbers are at. That answer it?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anything else while I'm still on here? Well, I'm just going to say real quick again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to you guys, be with you. And once again, I really appreciate, and I'm just impressed by the people willing to step up and work on these issues. I know it means a lot to you, and I can tell you truly, this job means a lot to me. I am passionate about what I do. I love the agency. I love what we do. And I've worked with most of the people, like I said, starting. This is like coming home to me again to do this job and work with people. So I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you all for your time and your service to the state.
Thank you, and thanks for being here. And I want to ask now, is there anyone else who has any closing remarks or orders of business we don't want to miss before we do close tonight? Thank you to our commissioner, our new commissioner, our new Parks and Rec board member for being here and taking the time. I know I can imagine you're pulled in many different directions right now, and taking a long evening after a long day is a lot of work, but we do appreciate it. So just a few final logistics. We'll aim towards, obviously we're going to have some subcommittee work happening, and even if you're not on one of those subcommittees, you'll be copied on updates on that. So stay tuned for that. But as a group, we'll aim for getting back together in May or right around there. So I'll do what I usually do, send out a poll so we can figure out what works. And as part of that conversation, we'll figure out, is there an opportunity to get together in person? And maybe it's some sort of combo where we do some business online, but we're able to get out in the field and take a look at something or do something together too. So we'll have that consideration, and we'll involve you guys in that as we figure that out too. Randy, did you have anything before we close?
Oh, just a big thanks for everybody for sticking with us on these Zoom meetings. I know it's not everybody's preference, but it does surprisingly allow for a lot of people to be able to participate. So and thanks to the director for joining us tonight, and our new Parks and Rec board member and commissioner, and legislators, and for everybody for joining us tonight. Very long meeting, but wow, really, really good discussion, you guys. I know we lean on you heavily, and I'm very glad that we have this robust and well-oiled CAC who can work so well together. So thank you so much for that.
All right, well, thanks again, everybody, and we'll be in touch before long. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, all.
Good
Thanks,
night.
very good. Thanks, Randy. Well done. Thank you.
night.
Good job, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
This is Senator Ellsworth bill about the game birds.
Stop.